Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our August 8, 2022 regular meeting of Belleville City Council. For residents watching on the city streaming service or on our YouTube channel or on the Your TV broadcast, I'd point out that our agenda and all reports are on the city website at www.belleville.ca. Under the agenda, minutes, and live meeting video on the left side of the screen. If you then click through that onto the August 8th on the calendar, it will bring you to the agenda for today's meeting. There is a hyperlink on the agenda in the event you wish to look at the reports, and you can follow along with all of us. I'll now call the meeting to order and state that we are all present, and I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services and City Clerk, Matt McDonald, to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right, item 3 on the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. I'll see a couple hands. I'll start with Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mayor, 8B4. That is the public service announcements.
Okay. All right, thank you. Councillor Millett.
Yes, Your Worship. 8B4, same as Councillor Kelly, same reason. Almost. And 8B6 as well. That's the grant committee report. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. There are no public meetings today, so we'll move to item number 5, reading and confirmation of the minutes of the regular council meeting of July 11th and the regular in-camera meeting minutes of July 11th, 2022, and the special council meeting minutes of July the 25th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Feeney. Any questions or comments on the minutes? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. We'll now move to deputations, and it's my pleasure to welcome representatives of Not Alone Team Quinte to come forward to make a presentation for council. Good afternoon, ladies. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, staff, and everyone in attendance today. My name is Debbie, and this is Vino, and we're from Not Alone Team Quinte. Not Alone Team Quinte is a grassroots, anti-poverty, nonprofit organization working to alleviate homelessness. We plan on making our program a charitable organization within the next few months. Currently, we run, maintain, and support 5 different programs, including the holiday program, meal program, pet foster program, outreach, and referral to community resources and services. Our mission statement is to provide services to the poor, hungry, and those that are residentially challenged through outreach, which includes but not limited to meals, friendship, food drives, and advocacy. We're here today to talk about portable home solution to homelessness in Belleville. If you walk down Bridge Street past the United Church, you know the homeless problem is growing, and it's everywhere. Over the past 5 years of working with our homeless population, we've learned so much from each of them, the stories and the stigma that follows them, leading them to the current situation. Accordance to the point time count conduct in April of 2021, there are roughly 180 people in Belleville, 72 people that have experienced homelessness for at least 12 months. The Graces Inn only has 21 beds. There are more people experiencing homelessness in Belleville compared to in 2021, and for longer periods of time. With no affordable housing available, from my understanding, waiting lists for subsidized housing is over 5 years to receive subsidized housing, and average rental is over $1,500 a month, which is adding to our homeless crisis. And the cost goes up, or it goes well beyond housing. What results is a cycle that is difficult, but that's not it. Sorry. Sorry. In the last count, 42% of the unhoused people interviewed said they used the hospital system in the previous 18 months, and 9% stayed at least one night in hospital. 18% used it simply because they became ill from a cold or COVID. 11 used it to get medication renewed. Over 60% of those that used it felt they were not understood properly because of their situation. In the last count, 16% of the unhoused people interviewed said they spent at least one night in jail or in prison in the 18 months. And 40% said they have encountered the police but was not charged. Homelessness and incarceration are compounding experiences. The stigma of criminal justice involvement making it difficult for people to obtain housing or employment, and people without stable housing are increased risk of incarceration or criminal justice involvement, and this often, the involvement can be avoided simply because they have shelter, as many were just inside a bank or on private property trying to get warm or a dry location to sleep. What results is a difficult cycle that is difficult but not impossible to break, as long as we understand the importance, provided the right resources and the neighbors, services for resources and the services for neighbors. We can do better. Belleville can do better. So what does better look like?
Thank you, Debbie. So our vision, so Not Alone Team Quinty and a steering committee are working to create a tiny shelter community for people who are homeless and request the collaboration of the City of Belleville. So we're looking to build a community of safe, warm, lockable tiny shelters with a bed, fire extinguisher, carbon monoxide monitor, and a smoke detector, and these units will be portable. So we're looking to do one 8x12 insulated shelter for each individual, a place that they can call home, with a main area for eating, showers, laundry facilities, and wraparound services to come to their location to help them heal and get back on their feet. The residents will abide by a code of conduct with a set of rules fostering safety, respect, and responsibility. We see this homeless crisis as an opportunity for community-based problem solving. In this time of crisis, we need to come together, both the public and private sector, to solve this community problem. European countries such as Finland have ended homelessness by adopting the housing first model. People tend to cope better with their problems and struggles when they have a roof over their head. So the tiny shelter community will fulfill on this requirement. This project in Belleville would be modeled after the success of a better tent city in Kitchener, but there are many more examples of this across the country. There's a little picture there of all the, a collage of pictures that, and even as close as Kingston. Not Alone Team Quinty has hired for a trial period Tony D'Amato Storts, the founder of Better Street, which offers strategies, problem solving, and training for groups in starting their own tiny shelter community. Tony worked for a year as a site superintendent for the Kitchener project, the tiny home community for their homeless, and currently is working with Peterborough and Hamilton. So with all this in mind, please understand this project is not charity, it's a chance. It's a chance to get off the streets, to maintain stability, to get proper medication if needed, to become involved and be a contribution in our community, to feel included. The reason why these miniature dwellings serve well is that they require very little land and capital per unit to house people. The Ontario Building Code exempts structures from a building permit if they're under 108 square feet. and they are portable, and they can easily be moved to a new location if needed. So why are we committed to this project? Is that we believe that when we take care of one another in our community, we will thrive as a whole. We believe that every Canadian has the right to live a life of joy, accomplishments, safety, growth, dignity, and strength, and that their right can be made real through these tiny shelters. We believe that in a community as prosperous as Belleville, poverty is a call to action for poor and wealthy alike, a call to change the world so that many more may have enough to eat, adequate shelter, access to education and health, protection from violence, and a voice in what happens in our communities. We can solve this crisis. We can solve this problem. We just have to work together. It breaks my heart when I drive by and see that. I'm sorry if I'm getting like...
So our ask and call to action is that council grants Not Alone Team Quinte $25,000 to get this project started. Request that the city staff work and the city realtor with Not Alone Team Quinte to develop this program to find an appropriate site and move through the different phases of the building project. The monies will be used to seed funding for the organization, including pay for Tony Storts. It will allow us to do a consultation with people experiencing homelessness, build our operational model, and develop the funding and volunteer base to sustain this project.
So Not Alone Team Quinte, just to clarify, we are all volunteers. Like, it's completely volunteer-based, and we have a short amount, like a little bit of funding that we've created through golf tournaments and whatnot, but we don't really have the resources to hire Tony. That's it, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Debbie and Vino. I just have a couple questions, if I could start off. And first, I just want to say thank you very much for coming today, but also for coming, I think it was in June when we met in my office. I forget the date, which exactly, but I think it was around June. And thanks for following up and bringing this in. You spoke about tiny shelter communities. And so what do you envision here in Belleville? We talked about one of the units, how it'll work, and there'll be communal showers and a dining area and the code of conduct and all the things you had spoken about. How many individual units or residents do you believe you'd be looking to start off with here in Belleville?
Well, our hopes are 50, but obviously with room to grow and develop. We have looked on the outskirts of Belleville for property because I think, you know, the more sources and that, like, a lot of people don't want it in my backyard. So we've kind of looked around to neighboring hoods of smaller backyards or farm property. So we're just looking, it's all in bases. We haven't found any property that's...
So you're looking to acquire some property as well? Okay,
Correct.
Thank you. That was my next question, so that's good. Is this similar to what the City of Kingston did this winter? So City of Kingston, they operate their own social services offerings. They're not part of a shared service agreement like we are here in Belleville. And I believe, if I remember correctly, they use some national homelessness funding to construct wood-based units. Is this similar to what the Kingston experience is? And do you know how many individual units they have now in Kingston?
So we're not really, I'm not really sure how I can answer that. Like, I only hearsay. I haven't done enough research to
Sure,
understand.
okay.
And having Tony help us through this process, I think the answers to those questions are going to come from, like, creating this model. And we don't have the resources, just Debbie and I and our steering committee right
Sure,
now,
yeah.
because we
Yeah.
need to kind of create this model and build
That's
it.
fair, I understand, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Would
Yeah.
you happen to know how many units there are in Kitchener, where Tony's from?
50, I think.
50 now, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Maybe.
All right, and then just to be clear, you're requesting $25,000 from Belleville Council to be seed funding, to be able to do the preparatory work to come back to council with a proposal for it to move forward?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
that's, I'm gonna, in order to do that, we'll refer this to new business where we'll discuss it. We're gonna give Mr. Ferguson enough time to start contemplating potential funding sources if council is so inclined. But I just wanna say thank you for coming, and I'll open it up to my colleagues to see if anyone has any questions or comments. Councillor Kelly, we'll start with you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. First of all, thanks very much, Debbie and Vino, for the presentation. It's good to see you here today. And I know you've been at it for 5 years.
A little over, but yes.
Over 5 years?
A little bit.
And going through the last 2 years and a bit hasn't been easy. But thank you for the work that you do for our community. A couple of things. You mentioned you have 5 programs, and we touched on the affordable homes. And you said 180 people experiencing homelessness. Those are some of the figures you passed to us today. Can you give us a success story? Someone who came to Belleville or lived in our community.
Absolutely.
And as you touched on, education, getting jobs, because when I drive around our city, there's all kinds of jobs. And I've talked to medical professionals. The biggest challenge with those experiencing homelessness is their health. And if somehow they get the support from our health community and they're there for them, that's where we have to start. And that's from well-educated people that I've spent time talking to. So we can continue to support, but I'd like to hear anyway a success story that you have to share with us, because that gives us hope and everybody hope.
So we have a few. We have, I don't want to give names because I don't have permission, but we have a couple that moved. One of our most difficult clients have received housing in Picton, and they are doing extremely well. One has a full-time job now, but they were one of our most difficult. I think most of our clients or most of our programs were like, we can't serve them. And they finally got housing, and they've done extremely well, and I'm really proud of them. And there's another gentleman that was living in his vehicle, and he was able to get housing in low-income housing, and he's doing extremely well. And he's been there for just over a year, and we have another young gentleman that was 22, 23 when we met him, and he's doing extremely well. He's in the Better or Home for Good, doing extremely well as well. So we have lots. I think once housing is there, they're able to get medication, they're able to get proper resources, and they're able to get back on their feet. And
I just wanted to share, I'm part of the support steering committee, that just on the street in a restaurant here in Belleville, someone was talking to me about someone who had gone through this Not Alone Team program, been helped by food, ended up singing in this place, someone that was listening to his singing ended up taking him to his place to sing in his place. He got a job, he got an apartment, and it all began with the Not Alone Team feeding someone. So that I just wanted to share that success story.
Thank you. Just another follow-up. You mentioned in your deputation to council today that we're in a crisis. And I think we all can see that in our community. We see it around the entire country. And it's, I think, worse now coming out of the pandemic than it's ever been. And it's more noticeable. You mentioned that affordable homes, an apartment, is $1,500. I can tell you there's affordable homes to me means many things, and many families are in a different situation. Just last Monday before the planning meeting, I spoke with a gentleman that was sitting on Hugh O'Neill's park bench here at City Hall. And he told me he makes not makes, but he gets support from the government, $1,000 a month. He doesn't have any hope of getting into an apartment for $1,500. That's the reality. That's the picture that this gentleman lives every day of the week. And he hurt himself when he was working in the trade industry in construction, and got addicted to OxyContin, and that's his journey, his story. So the $1,500 a month is In the big picture, it's tough if you're only taking in $1,000 a month. It's not possible. We do the math. I just wanted to wish you well with the tiny homes. I know Kingston have been following what they're doing. Indigenous leaders in Tyendinaga built small homes as well. In Tyendinaga this past winter, Kingston has 10 homes, and their homes, their tiny homes are mobile too, and they've moved them around a couple of times, I believe, in the city of Kingston. So good luck. Thank you for what you do, and every day, all of us here right now on the 4th floor see what's happening in our community, and our hearts go out to those experiencing homelessness right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much for coming from the Not Alone group. I know that goes back a long ways, where you used to feed people down behind City Hall, and the number of people that you served. So in your length of service for the homeless, I know it goes back probably at least 10 years, if not longer. Have you seen the increase in the number of people wanting that assistance over the last years?
Absolutely. Like, the increase is, when I first started, there was probably 40 people. And I just can't even, the numbers have just grown so rapidly, so fast over COVID especially. It's really sad to see the numbers grow, and the supports aren't there. We're kind of all like running out of energy, not only that, but running out of solution.
And you, at this point, and have been, you go out to different areas where there's so-called tent cities, whatever you want to call them.
Absolutely.
And feed the people out there.
Absolutely. We probably go to almost all of them. Once they're moved, we pretty much know where they're usually moved to or relocated to.
I commend you for what you're doing. So if you put these small units up, would you also be supplying a spot where there would be washrooms and stuff where they'd be able to do the basics for themselves?
That's the plan. That's the idea. We want kind of a wraparound service, however that looks. We would want food program, like everything kind of all like one-stop shop.
So you would want a central spot, plus you'd want the small homes.
Absolutely. Like if it's portable showers and portable bathrooms, if that's what it has to start with, then that's definitely the idea, because I mean, you can't have a shelter without a bathroom, let's be honest, and yeah, they need that, and a food program, kinda, we want to make sure they maintain everything they have there.
In your estimation, would it be better to be in town with the facility like that, or can these people that are homeless obviously don't have transportation to get from one spot to another, so it would be better to be in town?
I think that's something we would discuss. I think both would work. I think outside of town makes it more like harder for them to get a job or something, but it would be the idea of getting healthy and that while they're outside skirts and having transportation provided in that sense.
Yeah, and I like the idea where you're having services available to them, because without the services available to them while they're staying there, becomes less valuable.
Absolutely.
Because some of these people have mental issues and so on and so forth, and no fault to theirs or whatever, but unless they get some services with them, and you know, just with the Home Alone on Sydney Street, it's Home Alone, isn't it? No.
Not Alone Team Queen.
Yeah, the one in Sydney.
A Home for Good.
Home for Good. You know that's working, and because it's services there. And I think that if we were to do something like this, and it's just like when we have the in from the cold during the night, during the week, we need to have services there. So I think it's important. I commend you for the taking this on your group. Your group has done so much for our city. It's unbelievable, really. And you've done it with very few volunteers and people cooking in their kitchen and taking it down. So it's wonderful that you've taken this on. So I commend you. I look forward to having some debate of the funding, but at least you've taken the first initiative. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Next on the list, I've got Councillor Carr.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much for coming, and certainly appreciate the efforts you've done thus far. I'm 25 years in the correctional service, so I'm fully aware of substance abuse, drug addiction, mental health, and obviously the stability requirements of having a home. What partnerships do you either have formed or are forming? Certainly I agree that having a home for somebody is critical, but they're also coming into that home with drug addiction and with mental health issues. And so to create that stability, I often find that we have organizations that do great work on the mental health substance abuse front. We've got some on the housing front. We need more of both, but we need wraparound services. And so it's just not a matter of feeding people, counseling, all independent silos, because I know in my experience, unless you build rapport and bring people to those services, they don't necessarily seek them out. So back to my question is, what type of partnerships do you have now or that you're currently trying to cultivate?
So we're working with Christy Reeves, the street nurse here in Belleville. We're trying to get her on our team as well to help with that side. So I know she works at Bridge Street often, but she's part of the steering program, or hoping to be part of the steering program. We're working with a minister just to try to get in there. Mental health and addictions we'd like to have come in, and working with
We've had many conversations with different programs, but we haven't, and I understand collaboration is so important, and I understand that, there are many services, but we need to come together, and I totally get that, and this, creating this plan, this project would, and we're requesting that council have the staff work with us, Ontario Works and Hastings County, and there's many programs that are already there, and not alone Team Quinte, just going there and having the backing of council would help us kind of take that step and who are you, why do you want all this information, as opposed to this is what we're up to, and can you help us kind of create this together? We don't want to do this all on our own. We want to work together as.
So if I could, then what you're suggesting is the endorsement of the concept at least gives you that credibility required to go out to these organizations to say, look, we need assistance on substance abuse and mental health and things of that nature. So I'd encourage you to start cultivating those relationships, though, because again, I think to be successful, you need that complete wraparound services. Yes. Certainly homeless, providing a spot of shelter of some type provides the stability for those services then to come and meet those people where they're at, which I think is critical as well. In my experience, there's not a lot of trust for government services. There's not a lot of trust for government in general. Typically, that's a derivative of the criminal justice system. And so having resources go to where people are at is the most effective way in turning people's lives around and giving them that stability. My next question, my last question, is where are you in terms of your non-for-profit status? I think that will certainly help when it comes time for seeking funds.
So we are we have that.
Okay.
We are looking at being charitable.
Okay.
So we already have non-profit status. We just want to become charitable.
Okay, and then how far along are you on your charitable status? Because certainly that opens up a lot in terms of donations as well.
So we're just started on that, but yes, we became a non-profit, I think 2 years ago now. We've been non-profit, so.
Very good.
And well, just to add to that, we can also partner up with another charitable organization. If and Colleen McAllister, she has a foundation that she started in what area? Madoc, and so she's got a foundation, and we could partner up with that charitable organization in create and wait until not Not Alone Team Quinte get their territorial status.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you for what you're doing. Obviously, this is grassroots, and you're doing it because you obviously just see a need in our community. The fact that you're starting out cultivating these relationships is excellent, because I think if we're really going to look at solutions, it has to be collaborative and it has to be a complete wraparound service. So wishing you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Next on the list, I've got Councillor Alsop.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I just wanted to thank you both for coming today and for all the great work that you do in the community and have been doing for a long time. And I think that the great thing is you've chosen a really good model with the Housing First model, and then 360-degree wraparound services, which would include things, I would imagine, like health and mental health services, addiction services, employment services and counseling, you know, the things that you really need once you have that stability that a home brings to then, you know, backfill, you know, figure out what areas people need help in, and then move forward from there. And I imagine that a lot of the questions that we had tonight about, you know, the scope of the project, number of units, cost, will come out of that consultation phase that you're hoping to do. Yeah. So I think you're approaching it the right way, and I think that you're probably the best organization to look at something like this because of the connection that you have and the deep trust you've built with the homeless community over the period of time that you've been operating. And I've had an opportunity a couple of times to drop by and see you in action. And one of the things that always surprises me is the scope and the volume of what you're doing, even with a small organization and with not a lot of resources. Can you talk a little bit about some of those other projects you have, like the Christmas sharing, you know, how many families you're able to help and things like that? Because, you know, we have heard before the numbers of homeless individuals from that point in time count, which we understand is only 1 point of the year, which is often represents an undercount. But, you know, on a regular basis, you know, how many individuals you're interacting with that maybe even if they're not homeless, they're right on that threshold and are certainly needing assistance?
Well, we have frozen meals going out to our seniors and those that are experiencing homelessness in the sense of, I just don't have enough for food. So we do frozen meals. They're cooked from personal kitchens and frozen. And we do about, I want to say, so we do 24 meals for 2-week period. They're in containers. So we do, I want to say, 38 of those every month. So 38 times 24. And that's for individuals that have just haven't had enough, but to get by. And the food bank only, as you guys probably are aware, only gives enough for 1 or 2 weeks. So we kind of get them through the rest of the month. We do the Christmas program. We go to age 19, which is unlike any other program, only because I have a son with disabilities and I know that he firmly believes in Santa Claus. So, you know, if he does, then there's other people that do. And I don't feel that a 10-year-old shouldn't have, a parent shouldn't choose if my 10-year-old should have a Christmas and my 14-year-old shouldn't. So we kind of brought that program along. We've dedicated it to Larry Tillenberg, who passed away, because he was a big part of that program when we ran it. So we've been doing that for 4 years, and we do about 380 kids per year. So that's all out of our houses. It's a lot of work. We do the animal foster program. Currently we have, I want to say, 8 or 9 dogs in foster, along with about 7 cats. So those are, we provide the food, all the animal support they need. So once they get back on their feet, they can get their animal back. We use services, so Women's Shelter calls us up and says, hey, we have a woman that needs to go to a shelter, but we have nowhere for her animal to go. We'll try to find a pet foster program for that. We're often out of fosters before we're out of pets, and that's the unfortunate part, is there's a lot of people with pets that need foster. Our meal programs, our hot meal programs, we try to run once or twice a week, just so we can go out to our homeless camps and say, hey, we know that there's other services running, so we've kind of tried not to duplicate those, but kind of running out to say, we're still here, and what do you need? We have such a great relationship with our homeless. We know them by name. We know their stories. We know what brought them there. We know their addictions. But we have that friend, like, we don't go in like they owe us something. We go in as a friend and somebody that we believe in. So we always give them that support, like, hey, you can get better. there's supports there. Unfortunately, we have a lot of parents calling us up for rehabs. They want their kids in rehab, and that's something we cannot offer because rehab is $50,000 to $70,000 for one individual. So it's something that's not possible, and we try to explain that, like it's not there. We have one gentleman that's in the hospital who lost both his legs due to frostbite. We go see him constantly. He is going to be put into long-term care, so we're happy with that. So yeah, there's quite a few services that we do that people just aren't even aware that we're doing. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you, and nice to see you again, Debbie. You've got some pretty good things going on here. A couple of things I note. Have you, if I could ask you, have you made this deputation to Hastings County, or are you willing to do that? Have you prepared to do that?
We're always prepared. But yet we have not done that. No. Not yet.
Okay, thank you. And I mean, I think that's a great place to start. I mean, I don't know what they have from a standpoint of land or what they may be able to offer in terms of, you know, funding of some sort if you brought this proposition to them. I also note, it's really nice to hear about your pet foster program. We talk about this at the Quinte Humane Society, or the Humane Society of Hastings Prince Edward now. We talk about this often. And for many people, their animals are their family. And the loss of that animal, whether it be seized or have to be taken, is such an impact on someone's mental health. So we're really happy to, I know I personally am happy to hear about this, and I would encourage you to reach out to the Humane Society of Hastings Prince Edward. Maybe there's a partnership you can have there that could help you with this fostering program. I know that they have individuals who foster animals for them, so maybe that's something that could help. From a standpoint of food, I know they take food donations all the time as well, so
yes,
that's certainly something that I think is important. You should really foster that with the Humane Society. I think that could really be a good partnership. So I guess I would ask, and maybe you don't know this yet, how much land, or did you mention how much you felt you would need for 50 of these tiny homes?
I would like roughly around 8 acres, 7 to 8 acres. It would be my goal. But again, it's such a small, we could work with an acre, to be honest. It's such, 7 to 8 acres allows us to grow.
It actually allows us to create different like gardens and things like that. If it's out of the city, then the more space will allow for that, space of like creating things and whatnot. But if it really depends on the site. I think it depends on what location, and just to add to that, if in a tiny shelter community, they could really keep their pets with them. So
Yes.
it's
And I guess that leads me to the next question. So these are meant to be more of a year-round issue rather than just for the winter.
Correct, absolutely.
So they would be able to live, is there a set time limit someone can occupy one of these
Absolutely not.
tiny
Yeah.
cabins?
the idea would be to help them get on their feet, and if there was an opportunity for them to grow and move on, absolutely, that would be great. But the central hub, as we see for the meals and whatnot program, could cover those programs where they get the training that they need. Like we can bring services to them to get them back on their feet.
And just one more question, and maybe I'm thinking way ahead, which I often do, and I should take a step back, but in looking at this whole thing, do you have any type of budget cost idea that this entire program would cost, considering the cabins plus
Yeah.
the common facility that would house showers and washrooms and things like that, kitchen?
It's kind of, I don't want to catch myself in a number here, but
Okay.
as I'm doing some research, I don't know, $500,000 kind of something like that kind of stands out. I don't know.
Okay,
So-
and I'm assuming that's
with the land and like
including the land,
so-
or in
so the-
addition to the land?
so the cabin itself.
Yes.
It's around 5,000.
5,000 for the building, but for the wraparound services, it would be between 12 and 15,000 per. Like if you were to include the showers and all of the the services.
So 5,000 for the actual cabin itself?
Yes.
And you said 12,000 for the wraparound
So
services?
with the about 12 to 15,000 for the wraparound services. So if you have 50 individuals times 12, 15,000, that,
And that's in addition to the cost for the cabins, the 12,000, or does that include that?
it would include that,
So it'd be 12,000 in total, including the cabin,
yes.
wraparound services, the facilities to house,
Right.
kitchen facilities, and washrooms and showers, things like
Right.
that.
That's
Okay.
the ballpark figure, and
Okay.
again, like, you know, these are numbers that I'm just getting as I do my research, and this is just me basically kind of doing, not me, just Debbie, me, and so we don't, having Tony on board would really help us kind of create that plan, get that budget, kind of know where we're heading with this.
Okay, well, that's great. I think that's all I had for today, and it sounds like an interesting project.
And I know that Waterloo also, like the one in Waterloo, or Kitchener and Waterloo, their services, so the income part of ODSP and that covers all their costs eventually. Once they're up and running, it was able to sustain itself. So it was kind of really nice to see that
The shelter portion of their,
cost.
But not food costs, obviously.
That was for everything. So
Oh,
their
that's
food
food
cost,
and
absolutely.
And housing and hydro and
It was
everything.
able, once they were up and running, because the 5,000 is like, once the shelter's there, it's really kind of, so that amount was for hydro, for water, for absolutely everything on site, was able to maintain themselves out of the,
And would staffing be over and above that then?
I'm not sure
Security,
exactly.
staffing, things like that?
Probably over and above, that would
Okay.
probably be where the funding comes in, but
Yep, good.
everything else was able to sustain
Thank you.
themselves.
Great, thank you, Councillor McCaw. Councillor Feeney.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I too mirror my colleagues' comments about what wonderful, great work you're doing for this community. I just wanted to get back to the $25,000 and for the consultant's fee for Tony. I'm sorry, I can't remember his last name. Did he give you any indication as to what the time frame would be, like how long it will take him to put together this plan, so that we have a better indication as to when we might hear what the next steps would be?
We've hired him by the hour right now, but if we were to put down a project, I'm not really sure. I think we could come back to bring back that, yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm gonna say he's done this before, so he's probably got everything already done and able to present it as we go, so.
Thank you. That was probably my point, was to get a better indication of what has happened in places like Kitchener, to find out an approximate time frame, because we don't want it to sort of, well, here's a consultation and then when will we get any results? I'm just trying to get a better handle for that.
Our hope is to have one cabin on the ground by December. That's our hope.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, so okay, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have this referred to a new business a little later today, and we'll be able to have a discussion about it. So just so be clear, you're seeking some seed funding to begin a process in which you can make a proper presentation. Following up on Councillor McCaw's point, it may be first to Hastings County, it may be to the City of Belleville Council, will depend on how your work goes, and that'll be basically a proposal for how this project would work. You don't have real estate yet, you don't have a location, but from my meeting with you earlier, the temporary status of these types of structures allow them to be easily portable, so they could be at a piece of property that someone might make available for you while they're trying to sell it, and if it did sell, then they would be able to, you'd be able to relocate it. So it's not like it's going to be one spot forever. So and it's nice to see you know, Barb Talander here in the audience today. Her brother Larry, who was tragically taken from us while providing security services down at Myers Pier, I know had a very, very big heart and was very involved with it. So I did want to say that it's nice to see Barb here. But the last question is, you have received funding from Hastings County previously for some of the other programs you're running, correct?
We received $10,000 in total from any government So everything we do is maintained by ourselves, other than the 10,000
Yeah.
through
The reason why I was asking the question, Debbie, was because you have an account that is separate for the activities of Not Alone Team Quinte.
That's correct.
So that would be a funding source. Okay, those are the questions I had. You know, certainly we'll discuss it a little later on the meeting today when council makes a decision. So I'm looking for a resolution that the deputation by representatives of Not Alone Team Quinte regarding sheltering homeless in tiny cabins be received and referred to new business. Moved by Councillor Millette, seconded by Councillor Feeney. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
We'll now move to 6.2, where I'm going to ask representatives of the Belleville Downtown District and Belleville Police Service come forward and make a deputation to council regarding the Welcoming Streets program and downtown safety and security. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council, staff, and members of the community. My name is Luisa Sorrentino. I'm the Executive Director with the Belleville Downtown BIA. Today I'm here with the intent to raise awareness and advocate for one of the award-winning programs that we have in the downtown district. A program that caught the attention and is being implemented and replicated by several other communities in Ontario. What is Welcoming Streets? As part of your agenda package, you have received a report. So I will not go into detail as far as everything that the program does, but I'm just going to give a high-level explanation for the members of the public and other community members that are not familiar with the program. So this program was born as a result, modeled after a Guelph program that had started, and it started here in Belleville in June of 2021, so about 14 months now. And it basically helps people not only navigate the system of the resources and the support that are available in the community, but provides community education and support to all the stakeholders in the downtown Belleville. So that includes the business owners, that includes the property owners, that includes all the community residents that are going downtown, tourism, everyone benefits from this program. It is obviously highly impactful. It is proactive, it's person-centered, and again, like I said before, it was also the recipient of an advocacy and policy award at the Provincial Ontario OBIA conference last April. So this funding ends December 2022. So we, as the BIA, of course, support the businesses mainly in the downtown, and we want the downtown to be a premier tourism destination. So as we follow that strategic plan, we also see that we need immediate support for the individuals that are downtown, that are part of our community. And with having a person that is readily available and trained, highly trained, to give the support that some of these individuals need is definitely valuable for everyone in the community. I won't go too much into depth, but you're welcome to ask questions at the end, and I'm just gonna move forward in the interest of time. So as we said, this was a deputation that we were prepared to do in conjunction with the Belleville Police Services. So we have a message from the Chief of Police, Mike Callahan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council, invited guests, and Welcoming Streets Belleville. The Welcoming Streets Belleville initiative, I believe, has made an incredible difference in the way that we are being able to effectively support our members in our community who are suffering from homelessness. And this has been a significant game changer for our entire community, but also for the Belleville Police Service. When we look at our calls for service and we look at the number of calls that we're seeing decreased in dealing with homelessness in our community, it's all as a result of Welcoming Streets Belleville. And I believe that Sarah and her workmates Wait, Louisa have done an amazing job in making this difference. So on behalf of the Belleville Police Service, we are strongly advocating for the support of City Council to ensure that this initiative moves forward. The difference that it's made in our downtown core, and as you can see by the numbers of business owners that are here today to support this initiative, it has made a significant difference. So I would respectfully ask for your consideration in this request for funding moving forward for 2023. And thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I was hoping to be there in person, but unfortunately I'm away at some training. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Okay, so so obviously we collaborate with multiple community partners and local businesses. Excuse me. So we have a citywide effort. We have a lot of support agencies that are covering for the entire city of Belleville, but we have connected with at least 13 agencies to create this program. So everyone was invested in creating this program and saw the need for this program in the downtown Belleville. We also work in very close partnership with Belleville police officers, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the police officers that are community officers that help us on our delivery of the program and administration of the program every day. Constable Kelly Mena is not here today, but we have Constable Gervais, Constable Blake, and Sergeant Mike Doucette. So thank you very much. And all the other agencies as well that partner with us and help us, in particular, connect with Sarah every day. It has shown its impact, because we cannot change the fabric of this society just in a silo, like, you know, we were talking about this before with the Not Alone team, Quinty. We all need to connect. We all need to create those relationships. But in terms of what Sarah has established, she has met with at least 130 different, she had about at least 130 meetings with different communities, about 90 individuals that she met from all the partnerships, community partners that have either reached out to her or that have been in touch with us. So we continue these partnerships, and they are very fruitful. So there are key considerations that we need to make when it comes to welcoming streets. And of course, the first one that we need to just, you know, highlight in this particular occasion is that poverty and mental health are not, or mental illness are not a crime. So we need to make sure that as a community we remember that, and that a service like Welcoming Streets helps with exactly that. Not all situations that happen downtown warrant the presence of police. So that is the main thing that Welcoming Streets has found, you know, a great impact with. So a lot of calls to police, and we have data sustaining this. We have the police data that has supported this as well. So many averted calls. Of course, the rapidity of the response time, having a person that is already there, diffusing some of the situations, making sure that potential new calls are averted. Sometimes Sarah spends 1 hour with an individual, and she may be averting 3 calls that would happen that day if she wasn't there trying to diffuse the situation or de-escalate the situation. And we also know that the perception of safety downtown changes when we see someone like Sarah walking downtown and talking with some of the individuals experiencing mental illness or homelessness and other challenges that we can have. So we have a lot of key considerations here. We have some challenges as well, and that's also why we're here, is that we're looking for your support, because right now the hours of operation that one steward can cover obviously are not enough. We cannot cover 24/7 downtown when we only have one person. She has a workload of about 100 individuals that she counsels. So it's a caseload that I just let you think about that, 100 people. So of course she will, or anyone in that position would incur into burnout if, she continued to do that job forever. Very important is that the health of the downtown is basically related to the city's health as a whole. So we already know that. Like, it's not just about beautification, it's a sense of belonging. It's how people want to come downtown, creating those memories with their families and, just become part of their memories and creating a lasting impact on everyone that comes downtown. And that quality of memory only comes when we're all working together to make the community better. And as well as being Belleville tourism destination as well. We have our strategic plan, and we follow that. So if we want to continue to make Belleville the premier tourism destination and attract more new residents as well, we need to make sure that we help those who struggle navigate the system. So what's next? Again, who will be impacted if Welcoming Streets doesn't continue? Well, we all know the community at large will be impacted, and the clients that Sarah is seeing right now, like I said, at least 100 people will cease to have immediate support when it comes to counseling or navigating the system or access some of the support that she has connection with. But let's not forget that all the business community are now able to just call Sarah's mobile number and have her come over and help de-escalate or diffuse the situation, or simply sometimes move someone from sleeping outside the steps. Those are things that she's able to do because she has a relationship with most of the individuals. So it's very simple for her rather than for other people that may have a different perception of what is happening. Because most times there is, again, no need for police when we already know that some individuals have certain histories or certain triggers or things like that. So the nature of interaction is very, very different when Sarah goes. And of course, there will be a strain on some of the partnerships that we have if this program ends as well, because some of the programs and services have come to rely on Sarah being on the street. So even the community education, perception of safety, everything will change when that program ends, December 31st. So yes, we would have wanted to bring a case study or a success story like Councillor Kelly was mentioning before. But to respect the privacy of those struggling with homelessness and other issue, of course, there is no in-person testimonial from Welcoming Streets clients. However, we have a message from Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Baring, the Welcoming Street Steward with the Downtown Belleville District BIA, and I have a story for you.
On a rainy afternoon in June 2021, Sarah's phone rang. A community partner was calling her for assistance in supporting an individual experiencing a mental health challenge. As an outreach worker, Sarah headed over immediately. Sarah offered the individual a poncho for some temporary relief from the rain and spent the next hour with the individual empathizing with their story. At the end of this interaction, the individual turned to Sarah and said, "You saved my life today. Thank you." Sarah has been conducting outreach in downtown Belleville for the last 14 months and continues to hear those exact words. "You saved my life today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for stopping." The Welcoming Streets program has connected with over 90 individuals with over 500 unique interactions. A rapid mobile support service opens a world of opportunities. With each unique interaction, there is an opportunity to meet people where they are at while connecting them to complex services. to support a business with an unknown circumstance, to prevent calls to our local police unit, to break down barriers to accessing services, to reduce stigma, to create a place where everyone belongs, and to change someone's life.
So what's next? The Welcoming Streets program has been a trusting and reliable resource for the downtown community for the last 14 months, but it's due to end. This program has shown to be a vital resource for businesses, individuals, and community partners. So I say to you, this program needs to continue. Individuals need it.
When I meet with Sarah and sit with Sarah, she actually treats me like a human, like I'm actually worth something, because I've never felt this good being around somebody in my life.
The community needs it. The city needs it. Please consider funding Welcoming Streets.
So, what are we looking for? Well, we ask for your continued advocacy, your support, your confidence, trusting that this program is aligned with the vision of the City of Belleville to achieve a healthy, progressive, inclusive, and economically vibrant community. So for 2023 and the 3 years following, we are looking at $130,000 per year that will provide 2 outreach workers full-time and extend and expand the hours of operations of Welcoming Streets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sorrentino. Really appreciate you coming today, and it's great to see folks in the audience. You know, I'll first, I think, start off by saying that we are very supportive of this. We know this program works and it's necessary, and want to thank not just the BDIA for offering the Welcoming Streets program, but also for the Belleville Police Service for supporting it and for assisting, and Sergeant Doucette's here, along with all of the frontline officers that have been there. We know that you have diverted a lot of calls, you've helped a lot of people, and it's important. So my understanding from what I learned today is that this program in 2022 was funded by Hastings County through the
Reaching Home.
The Health and Human Services Committee. So you've mentioned, and I saw in the video, you mentioned that the funding has ended. So they notified you that they're no longer going to be funding this program moving forward?
So we applied for an RFP through their process, and the RFP funds have been assigned to other agencies.
So they've told you that they're not funding you in 2023?
Well, the process is right now, because they're doing a review of all their funding agencies or all the partners agencies that they fund, that we don't know if and when there is going to be an intake of applications for that funding for 2023.
But my understanding is they do a review every year, and that review always coincides with September when they move forward. So in terms of the application that you made earlier this year that you wasn't accepted for you, was that the same funding stream that you've applied for the year 2022?
It was for the Reaching Home funds, yes.
Is that how the 2022?
That's how we were funded before.
Okay, I don't think that's consistent with the information we received.
Yeah, we had two
we can clarify
funding,
that. We can clarify that in the process. So, so for 2023, do you know what the process is for Hastings County to consider organizations to be funded for the 2023 year?
Yeah. So I have checked in with Hastings County and Dino Mercury in particular, and we have corresponded, and they've told me that they will let me know at the end of the year or when this review ends, and I will be notified when we can do the application for the funding.
For the 2023 year?
Correct.
Okay. And from what correspondence I saw, that is open now, and they'll be considering that at the Health and Human Services Committee meeting in September for a decision by Hastings County. So, and that's fine. So I listened carefully. You mentioned that you wanted continued advocacy from the City of Belleville supporting the the principles of the program, and I would say you have it, and our support. You're proposing now a 4-year project rather than a 1-year project.
Well, we're looking at a long-term solution because having to apply for funding every year, it's also when the fiscal year starts is April 1st. So it kind of leaves us between January and the end of March, not knowing really whether we have the funds to have this person on the streets, and the BIA does not have resources allocated in the budget to support it.
Yeah, well, I would say welcome to the club on that, because I understand that all of the programs through social services are that way. They continue to wait for the provincial government to fund them for the next year. They've got to do reports and whatnot, so I understand that. Thank you very much for that. Again, I support the program. I think it has been a success. It deserves to be extended. Certainly, I'll support recommending to Hastings County that they continue to do so for 2023, and I really appreciate you being here. I'll open it up to our colleagues. I'll start with Councillor Thompson, then Councillor McCaw.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. It's interesting. I had talked to a number of people over the last few days, and some new information has come here. Councillor Kelly McCaw will probably be speaking a little bit more about that, some of the information. But the dialogue that I had last week, and I was prepared for a motion but to fund it, but with this new dialogue coming forward, the one point that I want to make though is there's 180 calls on your program that the Belleville Police Association was avoided from. That cost alone, if the police was involved in that, would have been significant. So the 80,000 or the 130, but originally the county only has funded you 80,000, right?
70.
70,000.
A year, yeah.
And you wanted to go to 130.
Yeah, because we would like to hire a second outreach worker.
Yeah, and the mayor brought up about Welcoming Streets applied for Reaching Home and implement funding, but were not successful. June CHS report. Reaching Home funding has been allocated through the 2024. They did not apply for the funding. So it sounds like there's 2 areas for funding. One was applied for and one wasn't. So with the dialogue that I've seen today and had with Councillor Kelly McCaw and the mayor, once we get to receive it, I know it's going to go to new business. I'm going to propose a motion at that bit in time. But I know that in particular, being downtown, I've called on Sarah twice in particular. And both times Sarah came to the rescue, and she even called me. She didn't get the message at first. The second time she got it late at night, and she came and she called me and she said she would look after that. So I realize how important it is, but some of the stats that you call is, 400 referrals, 230 calls, 300 meetings, 90 individuals, and 180 calls, 350 unique interactions, 31 workshops, 80 participants, 7 local businesses have partnered to offer goods and services. If you look at some of those stats, it's staggering how valuable this lady Sarah is to our downtown. But I think we need to make points. It's not only for the downtown merchants, it's the people that are coming downtown, that if she can avert a situation downtown, the people that are coming down to shop, the people that live downtown feel a lot safer. And I must say, when you look at I had a note here earlier, and now I can't find it, about the community policing. And here it is here. And it says, community support officers work closely with Welcoming Street, an outreach program currently funded by Hastings County and facilitated by Belleville Downtown BBI. This program is designed to assist downtown businesses and vulnerable community members, simulated through the authentic approach and centered around establishing and maintaining trusting relationships with Sarah and the police community. So I commend the police community, Leon's office, for expanding their program, but they can't do it all. And we know that the police association is extend it to their limit. And, you know, when they get involved, they gotta write a report. That's the way it is. When Sarah gets involved, she's on it one-on-one. And I think when you look at the especially even at the cost savings to our city, it's important that we look at it as a great benefit to the city, not just downtown merchants. And, you know, the community lives by it. So, in your estimation, can we live without this?
If we continue with the strategic plan that we have right now, we need this program.
Okay. And is the police, I know the chief spoke about this, and I understand the Sergeant Mike is here, and he's looking after the current community service officers. Would I be able to invite him to come forward and ask a question?
If he's comfortable with it.
Mayor and councillors, you're taking me by surprise, Garnet.
I know I am, Sergeant Mike Doucette. I knew I was going to do this, and I should have forewarned you before, but in your estimation with the constables that are with you, in your estimation, is this a program that you cannot do without as a police in reference to covering that area?
Well, I'll tell you professionally and I'll tell you personally, and you've known me a long time.
Yes, I have.
And I grew up here. You're talking about bang for your buck.
Yep.
This is a great investment. It's saving us time. We can't do it all. And it's like the chief has said before, this problem's only going to be made better by, if you're talking about 360 wraparound services, right? We're just a small part of that.
I know.
And this is a very important program. We're on the street, myself and my colleagues. We do what we can to help individuals. We're particularly assigned to help the homeless, people with addictions. There's a lot of people struggling.
Yep.
Sarah does a lot of great work, saves us a lot of time. And without her, the problem would continue to get bigger, so.
Thank you, Sergeant Mike. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, that's all I have to say. I just, there will be others speaking about it, and there will be a motion coming later on. But this program cannot stop, whether it's Hastings County supplies it or whether Belleville funds this. But I look forward to a little more dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you. And thanks for coming, Ms. Sorrentino. And it's too bad Sarah wasn't here. I want to thank you both for having that
She's
conversation.
here.
Oh, she is there. Hello. I want to thank you both for having that conversation with me the other day. I also did reach out earlier in, I guess it was probably late June. I had a lengthy conversation with Chief Callahan, and he really convinced me of the magnitude of this project and why he wanted it to continue. He did quote me the reduction in calls for service. I can't exactly remember the number, but it was even more than what you had listed here.
Yeah, our estimate is very
I had
conservative.
written it down, I misplaced it, but we had talked about this late in June. As you know, I also reached out to Dino from Hastings County, because I too was concerned that this was going to be defunded. And at that time, he had indicated to me that it wasn't, you were turning out for funding for the expansion, but you were still going to be funded until the end of the year. I followed that up after our conversation to ask, I just wanted to be clear on where we're at with this. So he had indicated to me that all agency allocations are under review for 2023, going through the Community Grant Investment Review, which is expected to be brought to committee in September. So the review will highlight all funding allocations, seek priorities, and introduce a more standard and formalized application process. Once we have approval from Committee of Council, we can act on the priorities as they are set and allocate what funds we will have at that time through the application approval process. So it looks like your program, along with others, is going to be reviewed in September. I'm on that committee along with Councillor Alsop, Councillor Millette, who am I missing? Councillor Sanderson. So we'll be watching this, and we'll really be, I don't want to speak for them, but I'll speak for me. If Chief Callahan, endorses this, I believe him. I believe this works. I believe it matters. So I will definitely personally be advocating for funding through Hastings County for this in September. And as I said, I won't speak for everybody else, but I kind of have a feeling that they may as well. So again, thank you, and I want you to know that I very much support the program.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor McLeod. Councillor Alsop.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I want to thank Louisa for being here today and doing such a great presentation about welcoming streets, and also thank you to Sarah, who's in the audience, for the great job you do. And I think this is really a case of we have a great award-winning program, we have the right people who are doing the work on the street, we've built this tremendous rapport with the vulnerable community. I think all of us agree that this is something that we want to make sure is carried forward. I can tell you as the BIA representative from Council, I got a ton of communication over the weekend and the later part of last week from the business community, and it was unilaterally in favor of continuing this program. And so what we have here, it's a win for vulnerable people who are living in our downtown core. It's a win for business owners downtown. It's a win for the police service. It's a win for the people who want to come downtown, have a great event, feel safe, feel comfortable being in the downtown core. So this is something that in my mind is completely vital to the health and the strength of our downtown. And as a member of the Community and Human Services Committee, I'll certainly be making sure that this is known to be a priority when we go into that funding review in September. And I can also commit to you that if for whatever reason that is not successful at that level, we will certainly be having this conversation again at City Council, because in my mind this is an essential program and I certainly want to see it continue. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Alsop. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and my thanks to also Louisa and Sarah for all the great work you do, not only on this program, but on others as well. So my colleague, Councillor Alsop, mentioned a whole bunch of wins. The one win he left off was the community, and we win in the community. And I think I do speak for council. There isn't anybody on council who doesn't support this program. We supported it through the Community Human Services Committee, and the funding source, if memory serves me correctly, was the CHIPPY program. I think it stands for Canadian Homelessness Prevention Initiative. So the funding didn't come from Reaching Home, it came from CHIPPY. And it is, as you had mentioned, it's there until the end of the year. And part of our budget cycle and part of Hastings' budget cycle is that, in the fall, we'll start with our capital budget, but in the fall, they also review, as Mayor Painchuk mentioned, the programs and where they're willing to commit. And there are 4 very strong and loud voices from council that are on that committee. And I do not anticipate a problem maintaining the program. Whether we're going to be able to add to the program, I can't comment. It will just require further discussion. The stats you've given are pretty astounding, and a simple math would say that if Sarah can handle 100 clientele, if you're anticipating growing it to 2, does that mean you expect the number of calls, the number of interactions to also double? You don't have to answer that today, but just give that some thought as well.
I can answer. I know for sure that Saturday is the day where the businesses are having their bigger day for sales.
Okay.
And they would definitely benefit. There are more people in the downtown on Saturdays that are coming to shop or to events or the market.
Now, you did mention it was 24/7. I don't think it's quite 24/7.
No, we can't, because we would need more more people to cover that. But.
Good. All right, thank you very much, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship, and again, to not flog the same horse. I think what you're seeing around here is unanimity in the fact that we support the program. We want to see it go forward. The issue that is facing us, unfortunately, and as Councillor Thompson knows, we're both members of the Enrichment Center Board and formerly the CMHA, as Councillor Alsop is a member as well. He's our treasurer. we know the vagaries of government funding for these programs. It's maddening when we want to see something that works, that everyone knows it works, but you're at the mercy of this government funding formula. And an example is the fact that it's got to go through this review. We've got to advocate, but we have to keep pushing for it year in and year out. Does it help the stability of these programs? No. But it's the sad reality of that's how we fund these programs. And as Councillor Sanderson said, we have 4 strong voices on that committee. And as Councillor Alsop said, if for whatever reason it comes back here, I think you'll see this group trying to find a way to make it work. I don't know if that's the reassuring words that you need to hear. I'm sure you would have loved to hear say, yeah, here's a check for 130 times 3, bring you right through easy peasy to 2026. We can't do that at this stage, but again, we'll advocate on your behalf at the county level, which in turn is for federal and provincial funding. And again, we're with you on this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank
Millette.
you.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Great presentation, Louisa, and Sarah, good to see you here tonight. Thank you. Just some thoughts on this welcoming streets. It was almost a couple of years ago, the mayor asked me to sit on a subcommittee with welcoming streets, and I remember being part of those first meetings, and we had representation from Guelph speaking there, and it seemed like a really exciting, rewarding kind of a program. And they're in their 5th year, I think, in Guelph, and you're finishing up a year and a bit. And just so everybody's on the same page, for those tuning in or watching this later, we received a nice information package from Louisa, and I wanted to say this, total supports and referrals, and we just heard from Not Alone team. Now, if you go to the graph just to see what our previous deputation was speaking about tonight, housing, support, and shelter number 1, followed by mental health and or substance related, came in at number 2. So that program, or those issues in the downtown and our city, certainly getting the exposure it needs, so people are getting that message. Also, the business community reached out in the package, and I do want to mention this. We see Trevor here from Belleville Public Library. Trevor sent in a really positive letter. Rebecca from Flowers by Dustin, Ashley Vader from the Grace Inn. There was a ton of folks sent us letters and made phone calls to us. Golda Lafferty from Lafferty's Menswear downtown, Scallywag Toys, thank you very much. And it's important that we be kind and compassionate. And I know that there's some businesses in the downtown that offer food vouchers or coffee vouchers. And I made a little note when I was reading this, coffee, food, and a smile and a show of support can go a long way. And that probably makes those characteristics, Sarah's job, maybe a little easier, because welcoming streets is all about building relationships. That's what I took from the initial meetings, was how can we make our community stronger, more compassionate, and we're doing it. So like all the colleagues around the table have said, no question with the support here from the round table. I want to get this in. Last thing, you mentioned right off the top, Louisa, I was taking some notes, your second sentence, you said other communities have also reached out to you and want to know about the program. Can you give us an example of a community that reached out to Belleville?
Yeah, so I presented and we received an award in April. And the day after, we received at least 5 phone calls, and 3 of them were to replicate the program. So they just wanted help understanding, okay, how did you get this started? There is a steering committee and so forth. And one of them was Peterborough. The city of Peterborough is actually looking to fund the program. Trenton is looking to as well get funding, and the City of London. And those are communities that right now don't have welcoming streets, and they've been inspired and want to replicate what we've done. And then there were 2 other communities that have the program already, Oshawa and Brampton, who called us to get some best practices. So they wanted to kind of compare notes with Sarah and us and see how we're doing and what's our funding model, because we can always improve by sharing our experience, and we're all looking for funding, so it's always nice to get other people's experience too.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Right. Well, Louisa, thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you
Sorrentino,
so
for
much.
coming today. And so I'm looking for a resolution that the deputation by representatives of the Belleville Downtown District and Belleville Police Service regarding the Welcoming Streets Program and downtown safety and security be received and referred to new business. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, second by Councillor Alsop. All in favor, it's carried. And then I believe there'll be a motion from Councillor Thompson at that point, so we'll deal with that. Moving to item 7, which is correspondence, and we do have a letter from the Belleville Downtown District, BIA, and the resolution is that the July 26, 2022 letter from the Downtown District requesting closures of Front Street from the south side of Victoria Street intersection to the north side of Bridge Street intersection for the following events: the Jazz Festival, September 3rd to 4th, 2022, the Porch Fest After Party, September 24th, 2022, the Enchanted and Holiday Market launch, November 17th, 2022, and those 3 items be approved. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Feeney. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, it's carried. We'll now move into Committee of the Whole, and I need a resolution that Council rise and go into Committee of the Whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with myself in the chair. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Feeney. All in favor, it's carried. So we will deal with reports, and the agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from council, starting with 8A1, which is the electric bus feasibility study contract award, and the resolution is that in accordance with section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, the quotation from HDR Inc. be accepted for electric bus feasibility study of the City of Belleville Transit System in the total amount of $195,574.75, this being the amount of the Metrolinx TPI process, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the City of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to fix the seal, and that the 2022 operational budget item D6-6 be increased by $45,600 for a total budget amount of $195,600, with the increase to be funded $36,500 from zero emissions transit funding grant and $9,100 from provincial gas tax. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Feeney. Any questions or discussion? Councillor Carr.
Yeah, no discussion, no questions, just some comments that, certainly it's important that we proceed with this. There's been a lot of talk about looking at electrification, and, it's, the federal government has set aside $2.75 billion as part of their zero emission transit fund. Earlier this year I attended an online forum regarding the future of transit, and I think I've mentioned this, that they've estimated that the conversion of the Toronto Transit Commission will be $5 billion alone for their fleet. And so at $2.75 billion, certainly that federal funding falls short. However, I think this feasibility study will provide us not only with the costs associated with it, but also the infrastructure required. And so it will be an advocating document as well, that when that funding does dry up, because I don't think it's enough, that we'll at least have a true picture as to what's required here. The other side of it too is that it's important to see the electricity that we're going to use. We saw a warning today about electricity use because of the warmer temperatures and the strain on the system. I remember years ago, back when manufacturing was a little bit more predominant in the province of Ontario, we would have those days in the summer where there would be that call for action. We don't have it now simply because we've seen a lot of our manufacturing eroded in the province, and so the demand isn't there. But the electrification is going to cause for a major shift in terms of the resources we're going to require. And when you start talking transit services from one municipality to another, in addition to the conversion of electric vehicles for personal use, there's a transformation that has to occur with the electrical system, and I know the province is starting to talk about that. But I think this will be a good start to at least pinpoint the demand, and not only for the electrification, but the cost associated with it. I think there'll be a lot more advocacy work that's required, and this document will certainly be a good launching pad for that. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Sanderson and then Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. just following on with Councillor Carr's comments. This is really just the evolution of our plan for public transit. And it's a critical step that will help us to evaluate whether in fact it's viable for our community to be able to go to the transit. The fund that the federal government announced of $2.75 billion was intended to provide electric vehicles for both public transit and school buses to the tune of 5,000 units. So the fact that we're partnered with Metrolinx and we're sort of in early with 14 other communities, I think will position us well for funding in terms of going forward if that's the direction that we want to go with public transit. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, one question. The original estimate, and then we increased it to by 46,000, which is a fairly large increase. Can somebody explain to me why we've had to add extra to it? Are we getting more for buying for the buck than before? Just sort of an idea why the $46,000 increase. I know the funding's from provincial gas tax and the emission transit funding, but understand why.
General Manager Reid, do you have any information?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Thompson. It allows for more public consultation as well. After we had met with the consultant to kind of define the scope of work, it was kind of, they had recommended that we should do a little bit more public consultation as well, so.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Anyone else? All right. This is good news. I have been impatiently waiting for this to come forward, and I know that Director Hines and Deputy Director Ferguson have been, I think they said they're tapping the brakes on me a little bit on this, but we've got to follow the right process. The one thing that this will do, and colleagues, I think we all understand, we are not going to be able to avoid electrifying our fleet. We must do it. And we don't know what the costs are and the challenges, but it is something that's going to have to happen. Electrical utilities are preparing for this. As you know, I sit on the Alexicon board, and so we see the preparation work that's happening. What we're going to get out of this is a route, so to speak, a route forward for how our transit system is going to be able to be electrified. Perhaps not all at once, but we'll start that process, and it's an important first step. So I'll be certainly supporting it. And I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8A2, request for proposal for the Avonlow Sewage Pumping Station and Conveyance System, including Sydney Street widening and Sydney Street Bridge Street West intersection improvements. And the resolution is that the request for proposal submission from AECOM Canada Limited be accepted for RFP ENG 2022-02. Request for proposal for detailed design of the Avonlow Sewage Pumping Station and Conveyance System, including Sydney Street widening and Sydney Street Bridge Street West intersection improvements, in the total amount of $3,145,373.08. This being the most qualified proposal received, and that the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the Corporation of the City of Belleville, and that the City Clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that the 2022 capital budget be amended to increase item 1.009 Sydney Street Bridge Street West intersection improvements by $500,000 to be funded $75,000 from the development charges and $425,000 from the capital levy reserve fund, and that the 2022 capital budget be amended to increase item 1.111 Avonlow Sewage Pump Station Sewer Outlet Design by $850,000 to be funded $459,000 from development charges and $391,000 from the wastewater reserve fund. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Millette. Any questions or comments on this? So I just want to make a couple of comments, because this is really a very important project for the City of Belleville. We know that we will be having redevelopment at the former fairground site, and for some time we have had concerns regarding the safety of the Bridge Street West and the Sydney Street intersection. It's very important that we go ahead with that project. We're expecting imminently some announcements on the type of commercial services that will be going there. But also, it's really important that we do this design work for the Avonlaw sewage pumping station, because this is really going to unlock the west side of the city. If you look at your report, you'll see this is going to support up to 4,000 residential units on that side of the city. As we grow, it's going to support the expansion of recreation and facilities and businesses from Dundas Street at the south all the way to Bell Boulevard. And it is crucial for us to move forward. The last thing I want to say is that earlier this year we went through a process where we took an increase in development charges, and you can see the large amount of development charges that are going to support these projects. And again, this is very important that we are having growth pay for growth, and that we're not just collecting those fees that some were concerned about, but we're actually expending them. So for all those reasons, this is an excellent project. It's good for the future of the city, and I'm glad to see it here today. And with that, I will call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8A3, Contract ENG 2022-03, Orchard Drive Road Reconstruction. And the resolution is that the tender submission from K. Mulrooney Trucking Limited be accepted for Contract ENG 2022-03, Orchard Drive Road Reconstruction in the total amount of $4,026,824.62, this being the lowest cost tender received, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the City of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any discussions or questions on this? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. 8A4, single source purchase of an aerial bucket truck. And the resolution is that in accordance with section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, the quotation from Alltech Industries Limited be accepted for the purchase of 2023 Freightliner chassis and Alltech aerial bucket truck in the total amount of $378,794.08, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the City of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that 2022 capital budget issue 22-1.029 be increased by $15,000 for a total budget amount of $345,000 funded by the Capital Equipment Reserve Fund. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Alsop. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. All right, we'll move to consent items, where council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. I know there are a couple items that were pulled, that were mentioned about pecuniary interest, and so if they are pulled, we will deal with them, and the councillors will have to leave the room. But I'll go around the table and ask if anyone would like anything pulled. Councillor McCaw.
No, thank you.
Councillor Sanderson.
No, thank you.
Councillor Alsop.
No, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
8B7.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
8B4, 8B7, please.
Councillor Feeney. Councillor Millette.
No, thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you.
All right, so I am looking for a resolution that the consent items be approved with the exception of items 8B4 and 8B7. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favor, it's carried. So we'll start with 8B4, which Councillors Kelly and Millette declared conflicts on. And it is public service announcements for COVID-19. The resolution is that report number CAO 2022-04, public service announcements, be received. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Alsop. Councillor Carr, you had raised this. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. I heard portions of some of these announcements over the course of the pandemic, and had some residents ask me about it as well, so I wanted to kind of see what they all were and what they entailed. And I just point out that some of them certainly provided some valuable information as to open and closures. There was some that I think lacked details. I know there was a couple where talked about some mental health opportunities or what's available, but there was no details about here's some numbers or what have you. So it was more just to see what all those announcements were. certainly appreciate that there's a cost associated with that. I just wanted to see whether those messaging was aligning with those costs. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. And so we'll now move to 8B7, which our colleagues do not have a conflict on, so we'll bring them back in. Yes? We didn't pull it, though. Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate you looking out for me, Mr. Beauvais. I certainly can use the help. All right, so we'll now move to 8B7, which is the Community Safety Zone Policy, and the resolution is that pursuant to the General Manager of Transportation and Operation Services Report, GMTOS 2022-25, Council approved the Community Safety Zone Policy. It's moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Carr. Councillor Thompson, you would raise this. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Really, I just want to bring it to the attention. This has been talked about at the Transportation Committee level for a number of months now, and it will lead to other further discussion down the road, but the purpose of it, and I just want to, the purpose and objective of this policy is to implement community safety zones in locations that they will provide greater benefits. The community safety zones are to be used in parts of the roadway where public safety is a special concern to the community. The CSZ warrant outlines two major components. The first component warrant is designated areas of special concerns and must be satisfied before the community. Continuing on to warrant two considers the collision and risk components. One of these components must be satisfied in the order for CSZ to be implemented, a checklist to the implementing the area. And the roadways, and down at the bottom it says roadways near schools, daycare centers, playgrounds, parks, hospitals, senior residences, and may be used for collision-prone locations within the community. And on the next page, these areas include community centers, elementary school zones, high pedestrian traffic locations, defined as location experiencing an average of 100 pedestrians per hour, senior centers, and residents. The second component, posted zones, speed zones, daily traffic count, number of lanes, length of sidewalk, pedestrians, and at the last thing, we take this very seriously on the community safety zones. Therefore, the recommended policy should be used with great care and caution. And at this point, I'd like to call on Manager Joe Reid, to come and maybe give a couple of his points, because he brought this policy forward. It's a great start for our community, and as I say, there's more to this as we proceed into the safety zones.
General Manager Reid, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, Councillor Thompson covered off a lot of the criteria. This will provide a nice roadmap for staff and the Transportation Committee and the police representatives to bring forward recommendations to Council in the future to designate community safety zones.
Okay, good. Anyone else on this item? Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you. And I guess the important thing to point out too is, in addition to having the set criteria, and we've done that for other things related to traffic, is a step towards, when we implement, hopefully at some point in the future, automated speed enforcement cameras. And in the policy, it talks about the fact that City of Hamilton, Ottawa, Toronto, through their own evaluation, have found that community safety zones to be generally ineffective in changing driver behavior. And I would agree, simply because you need a police officer there to enforce the speed in which to issue a ticket, of which the fine is then doubled. And with automated speed enforcement, it's cost effective, and at the same token is that has been shown, and the Transportation Committee has seen in other municipalities where speed cameras are there, that there is in fact a change in driver behavior. And that's the ultimate goal here. It's not about revenue generation or anything like that. It's about community safety. And this policy is that first step to hopefully build on a program which includes automated speed cameras, which will change people's behavior. And with that, tickets decrease, revenue decreases, but what increases is public safety. And I think that's what we're all looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question through you to General Manager Reid. How many safety zones do we currently have today in Belleville? Community safety zones?
Yeah. Currently, we only have 3.
3. Okay. So, Councillor Carr touched on the automatic speed enforcement. So we've been having this discussion for about 2 years now. So
4.
Or more. Well, this council's been having it for 2.5 years. Maybe other councils discussed it as well. But my question, I guess, through you to City Clerk McDonald is, can you provide an update on where that project stands? The last I recall it being discussed in Chamber, we were working with 1 or 2 vendors to perhaps engage with us, develop a request for proposal, and move forward.
Director McDonald.
Through the mayor to Councillor Sanderson, that was directed to the Transportation Committee, trying to get the committee's name right. So it went from the clerk's office to the committee, and it was packaged with automated speed, school bus, all of that, because for lack of a better term, the back end of the house of the processing of all of the fines enforcement is very similar and requires significant resources that aren't currently in-house, so it was felt best to be done all at once and all together.
Okay, so basically we've done a reset, and the reset is the start point is the community safety zones, and that's the document we see in front of us. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I'll just make an observation. It is, and I think all of you will find this, particularly as those of us who are seeking re-election are going and meeting people, going door to door. Speed is a serious concern all over the city. It was like that 8 years ago. It continues to be. We know in areas where we resurface roads, we see an automatic increase in the number of complaints regarding speed. So, I appreciate our department getting those speed spies or the signs that let people know what speed they're going at. But there are some people who are speeding inadvertently because they're not paying attention and they happen to speed, especially on new roads. And then we have some who are chronic speeders with no regard for the safety of others, and something must be done. In Ontario, under the Highway Traffic Act and the policies from the province, things like stop signs, traffic lights, they're not designed to be used for speed enforcement or to reduce speed. They have it, but at the same time, we are tapped when it comes to our police. We cannot have someone out all across the city all at the same time enforcing speed. So we're looking at these different options, and it's something that we need to address. We want to have a safe community where people aren't afraid, and we want to have a community that we expand things like active transportation trails and bike lanes, where we are introducing more than just vehicles to roads. It's got to be something that we take care of. So I'm happy to see this here, and we'll look forward to implementing other measures that can help with speeding in the city. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll now move to 8C, Council Information Matters, where Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and Council shall consider such items individually. I'll go the other way around the table. Councillor Kelly?
No, thank you.
Councillor Millette?
No, thank you.
Councillor Feeney? Councillor
No,
Carr?
thank you.
No, thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
8C2, A and B.
Okay. Councillor Alsop?
No, thank you.
Councillor Sanderson?
No, thank you.
Councillor McCaw?
No, thank you.
So, we have a motion that the agenda items be received with the exception of items 8C, 2A, and B. Moved by Councillor Feeney, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. All in favor, it's carried. 8C2, request support for the following letter or resolution for June 28, 2022 resolution from the Municipality of Tweed, requesting the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs to review the administration fee provided to municipalities for the administration of the Ontario Wildlife Damage Compensation Program. It's moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Alsop. Councillor Thompson, you had raised this. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I ask that we support our community neighbors of municipality of Tweed in their deliberation of the cost associated with the situation what they're dealing with wildlife. And you know, it's not a lot of money, but again, it's a fee that's being absorbed by the town of municipality of Tweed. So I ask for their support and back the municipality of Tweed. By me.
Anyone else? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. 8C2B, the July 19th, 2022 resolution from the town of South Bruce Peninsula, requesting the provincial and federal governments recognize the shortage in healthcare workers is not unique to PSWs, but is also relevant to physicians, including specialists and general practitioners, and that they take steps to provide support and subsidy to students entering medical school with the intent to practice in Ontario and to work with universities to increase the number of students accepted into medical school and residency programs, and that the province expedite the accreditation process for foreign medical practitioners. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Feeney. Councillor Thompson, you had raised this. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I ask for their support in all aspects of it. But the one item that sort of stands out for me, the students are important, but on the page, the second part of the page, we would support expedient accreditation process for foreign physicians. We would encourage the increase of additional student spaces in medical school residency programs. And I think the important part is both the students and faster process if we can accredit new doctors coming into our country from many different countries. And we know some of those doctors are not able to practice because of the long process. And when we're in such a need of doctors, I think this is an important that the government look at shortening their process up of accrediting them. Thank you.
Anyone else on this? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. So we now need a motion to rise and report. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Feeney. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll now move to bylaws. And for first reading of bylaws, and if it's okay, I'll just read off the numbers. 2022-109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, and 115. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Carr and Councillor Kelly. All in favor? It's carried. Second reading of bylaws number 2022-109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, and 115. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Feeney. Any questions or discussion on those items? I do have a question, and I'm sorry I did not mention it to you before, Director McDonald, but on 2022-110, which is second now reading, because we gave previously, I believe we gave first reading to a bylaw for the purpose of collecting input. Can you just, very quickly, maybe talk about what type of did you get a lot of input, and what changes were made to the bylaw as a result of that input, if you recall? And it's my fault for not mentioning this to you earlier if you're not prepared to speak to it.
Oh, that's okay. We received very little input. A couple of the operators, one of the local companies did provide input. I think we'd had lots of back and forth with them, and one of the ride-sharing companies and one of the limousine companies, obviously, they provided input. They'd never been licensed before. We were able to accommodate all of the input. None of it was, from my perspective, material and or unanticipated. They were all very happy and we're moving forward with the bylaw, with nobody really, from our perspective, unhappy. It doesn't change any of the goals of council and or the staff from the regulatory position. So from our perspective, I think it's good news. I think from our perspective, on the ride sharing, I think one of the things that came to light during the feedback perspective, one of the ride sharing companies in the city has 72 vehicles in the city. So that was an eye-opener for us at the stage where we were engaged with some feedback. So there was some commentary that there were very few vehicles in ride sharing in the city, but one of the companies has 72.
Wow.
So.
All right, good. Well, thank you very much. That was the only question I had. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Second reading. And third and final reading of bylaws 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, and 115. Moved by Councillor Alsap, seconded by Councillor Feeney. All in favor? It's carried. So new business, and we have two items for new business. The first was the referral from the deputation regarding tiny shelter community. And so, Councillor Thompson, you have a motion. I'll recognize you, and then I think Councillor McCaw is seconding it.
That's the,
I'm sorry. I got confused. Your next one is the one we have motion. So we have the issue that was referred from the deputation over the tiny shelter communities, and I'm looking for. I think they were asking for $25,000 in funding to assist them to build their presentation, to do the research, to engage that consultant who has done that work. And they were also looking for support in general from council over this. So the first, before I entertain a motion, I want to ask you, Mr. Beauvais, if I could, because you were involved in that conversation. So they're talking about portable temporary use. Does the current zoning bylaws the city have now, does it permit this type of a practice or siting of these tiny shelters, or does it require rezoning when potential sites are identified?
Well, I think I would, Your Worship, defer to Mr. Ashton.
Sure.
Because he's been going through a lot of work on changing our zoning bylaws, and to be honest, he may have changed some things that I'm not aware of.
Fair enough. Mr. Director Ashton, did you understand my question?
Yeah, I think it would be more of a site-specific zoning, given that it's a very special nature of the project. So I think first step would be sort of them to sort of maybe have a meeting with staff and.
Okay, but I guess, if I put myself in their shoes, they're, they don't have a lot of means. They don't. They're dealing typically with individuals in crisis, and they're working. This is, I think, the first time they've come to us. They did a very good presentation with all the information, and I think we're generally, supportive. One of the things I've often said, right, is that you cannot help someone who is suffering from homelessness if you don't get them off the street. And so here is a proposal that would, for a temporary period of time, get people off the street. I don't want to all of a sudden now have to go through a rezoning process, which is legislatively regulated by the province. It takes an inordinate amount of time to go through a rezoning process. If you really, really move quickly, you'd be lucky to get it done in 3 months. And particularly where this is a temporary nature, where they may be at, let's say I had 7 acres of land and I made it available for them, and I was looking at selling it. And then while I sell it, they now have to relocate somewhere else, and for them to have to go through another process to do rezoning. I believe there's fees involved with rezoning and whatnot. Is there a way that we can interpret this type of a shelter community to be temporary in nature, therefore not requiring zoning issues?
I would say that any kind of development like this wouldn't really be considered temporary. So, and the current bylaws we have are over 40 years old, so they're not anything that would have been contemplated back 40 years ago. We do have a new zoning bylaw that's coming forward, and we can look at that, but Obviously, you know, technically through a zoning bylaw, like we can staff assist them in that, regardless of what that. If it's a public use, perhaps we could make that. If it was a city of Belleville property, yes, it could be it could be sort of deemed as a, you know, as a public use sort of idea.
Fair enough, but I think you understand my concerns on this. Like, we're now in August. Let's say that we were willing to help them with some resources. They went forward, they had the study, it comes back in September. If it takes 3 months for them to look at rezoning, and then there'll be an opportunity for public input, et cetera, this thing won't be in place for 2020, the winter of 2022 and 2023, when they're able to do it. And I guess, you know, perhaps we can be a little bit more creative to consider it a temporary use, which for a period of time would allow them to deal with it. I know that there are also building code issues, because you've got portable dwellings that would have to have some type of septic tanks that would also be portable. They wouldn't be hooked into municipal services. In the winter, there'd have to be heating requirements, which of course have danger issues. You know, will it be propane heated? Will it be heated with other types of fuel? How will that all work? You know, a common area for cooking and for cleaning, laundry facilities. These things are all, I think, are happening in their communities, and they're able to do it. I just want to know that if we're going to support some funding, and I think we've identified a funding source for it, that it's not going to get hung up and they can't make a go of it this year.
Yeah, so I think they did mention that there's some municipalities that already have it in place. So obviously we would be looking at it as a best practice sort of idea. So I think Kitchener, they mentioned Kingston, so we would look at what they've done and try to replicate something like that here.
Okay, thank you. In consultation with Deputy Director Ferguson, we had made some funds available to the Belleville Police Service in the spring for paid duty coverage of the downtown area. Those funds have not been utilized, or not all of them have been utilized, due to the difficulty to get paid duty officers. So we do have funds there that we can reallocate to cover this funding for the proposal. If council considers it, I'll just put that out there. We can have some discussion, and if a motion comes for it, that might be a potential funding source. Councillor McCaw and then Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, through you. And you know, it is an interesting proposition, but I do think it's a little ambitious to think that this could actually be done realistically by December. Obviously, there needs to be a community area with showers and a kitchen, and that's just not something you put up overnight. So, you know, I respect what they're saying. You know, I think they're trying, but I really believe having one sleeping cabin up with electricity, with heat, you know, all of the resources they need by December, to me, is far too ambitious. So, you know, I'm not that I won't support anything anybody else wants to put forward, and not to say that I won't support the funding allocation for them to at least look at it. I just think that it's unrealistic to me that could actually happen in time. So that's my thought.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I think the Not Alone team do great work. I mean, we all sat and heard the sort of testament in terms of programs they're supporting and the good work they're doing. But I got the sense when they were talking about this particular project that it was really sort of a smattering of ideas. By their own admission, they hadn't had the time to do, you know, the sort of research that they would want to undertake. And, you know, we talked about, you know, I think the words were, you know, hope for 50 of these units. And it was discussion of 7 to 8 acres and perhaps 1 acre as a start point. And then there was a discussion around, you know, how are these people going to be funded, and they're going to use a portion of their ODSP monies. So I think it's kind of like this great idea, but how you actually actualize it, I think that's the challenge. And we have a partner that looks after housing. And that partner is Hastings County, and they look after our warming center, they look after our subsidized housing. And to me, I believe that this whole discussion should be referred to them for action. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Councillor Alsop?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I think what we have here is a great community organization who's trying to answer really a seminal question that faces all of us in terms of what are we going to do as a larger picture about a housing first strategy as it surrounds creating spaces for people who are currently on the street. And I think that a lot of the concerns that we have are centered around the development of the project in terms of where are we really going to go from here. And I don't disagree with the idea that it's probably ambitious to be having shelters erected within a 3 or 4 month time period, given the fact that a consultation will need to occur before that, and then funding will need to be sorted out, and then planning considerations will need to be sorted out. So I don't disagree with that, but in my mind, $25,000 to get the ball rolling to answer what is a fundamental question and a serious problem that we're having in the city, if we can make significant inroads into dealing with that problem through this allocation of funding, I think that's worth $25,000 to me, and I would certainly be supportive of a motion coming forward.
All right, Councillor Feeney?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would support as well, but I go back to my comment that I made when the representatives were here, asking how long the project was going to take in terms of the consultation process. And we were told that there was going to be paying Tony an hourly rate. So I'm still wondering where the $25,000 came from if there isn't any proposal. And I'm not poo-pooing here. I'm just saying that if we're going to allocate $25,000 for something, then we should have some assurance that, you know, it's been thought out, this is how many hours it will take, this is the hourly rate, and we would have a recommendation or proposal or whatever done by X. And I mean, I think it's a simple thing, and whether, if we decide to move forward with this, I would request that we receive some kind of information from the consultant as to what we will get for the $25,000 to support this organization and all the wonderful points that we've made. Thank you.
Okay, then I've got Councillor Carr and Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the floor?
Not yet.
Does anybody have one? Because if not, I'm about to put one on.
I would suggest something along the lines of that the request by Not Alone Team Quinty for $25,000 to develop a concept plan for a tiny shelter community be approved and funded by Reserve for Future Expenditures, which is what we did with the other funding thing I talked about, and that a report be delivered to Belleville City Council by, and we just have to pick a deadline. Does that sound something along your lines? So you can make that motion if you want, Councillor Carr. So I have one question. When would we like a report back? So they'll develop this concept plan, they'll bring it back to us. When do we like that by? Yeah, anybody who has a...
Well, I was going to, if I could, I was going to suggest that, you know, in addition to that, we endorse support for the project, because I think we need to say that, because they're talking also about going to other organizations. They need to go to Hastings County as well, because they'll be able to leverage some funding, hopefully through them, through senior levels of government. And I would suggest at the very least quarterly updates on their progress. So we don't necessarily need the final product. I'd like to see quarterly updates on the progress being made, simply because I know there's going to be some additional work that has to lay out as to this consultant, how much, all the rest of it, because I want to make sure that the momentum keeps going. So not just wait for the final product, but quarterly updates as to where they are. That's my suggestion. I'd like to speak to the motion further.
Yeah, so I think what I'm just incorporating it into what I had read previously, and that a report be delivered to Belleville City Council by December 31st, 2022, and that Belleville endorses the concept of a tiny shelter community. I'm just working this. I'm not very good at these motions. So does anybody have any concerns with what we read? Mr. McDonald will craft it in the right wording, but the idea here is that we would support the allocation of the $25,000 to allow them to proceed with developing a concept plan that will come back to Belleville City Council by the end of the year. It could be earlier, but by the end of the year at the latest. And that it's funded through the Reserve for Future Expenditures, which is what we did for the downtown paid duty patrols, which has not all been utilized, so there's funding that's there. And that we're endorsing the concept. Obviously, we have to see the details, but we're endorsing the concept. That should allow them to be able to go forward to Hastings County, other partners, to be able to work on this joint proposal. And then we'll deal with everything else, including zoning restrictions and what modifications. Mr. Ashton and his staff will be able to take a look at what other communities have done and perhaps propose either amendments or ways that it can be made possible. Councillor Alsop and then Councillor McCaw.
I would just like to add to that in conjunction with the report, we have a deputation from the consultant.
Yeah, my only concern is that that's another council, and I'm not sure what their timeline's going to be. So, typically there'll be one meeting in December, early in December, and then there's not another one. So I don't want to jam them up. If they can get us something in writing, and then the next count, we can consider that in January and have them come. So I would just ask not to put the deputation requirement now, but clearly when if the report is put together, submitted to Mr. McDonald, he'll distribute it to members of council. At that point, it's easy to make a request and say we see further information. Is that okay? Okay. Councillor McCaw?
Thank you, through you. And I mean, I guess my concern is, and actually Councillor Feeney sort of sparked it in my mind, I'm not comfortable writing a check for something that I don't see a proposal for. So in other words, this gentleman that they have putting together this proposal, I'd at least like to see what the, what are we expecting from him? Like what is to be expected?
Yeah.
I know that's maybe not our place, but I could write a check tomorrow and I want to know where it's going.
Fair enough, Councillor McCaw, but I think there is support around the table for this. So I take what you say on record, I understand, but we want to move on. So Councillor Millette on this proposed motion, and then we'll get it on the floor and then we can debate it.
You know what, and I understand, and I understand the reticence of some of my colleagues over this, and it is fraught with an awful lot of unknowns. And the deputation, in all fairness to the deputation, these people, they're a grassroots, as they said when they came to the podium. They're a grassroots group that wants to get things done. All they've asked of us, all 25,000 isn't chump change. All they've asked from us is support. 25,000 to get their feet out from under them. And you know what? We've taken worse leaps of faith around this horseshoe over the years. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though I too have a lot of concerns about just how organized the group might be at this point. But they're never going to get the wind under their wings if somebody doesn't give them that first lift. Okay. So I'm willing to bet.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to the following motion: that the request by Not Alone Team Quinte for $25,000 to develop a concept plan for a tiny shelter community be approved and funded by the Reserve for Future Expenditures, and that a report be delivered to the City of Belleville by December 31st, 2022, and that the City of Belleville endorses the concept of a tiny shelter community. Moved by Councillor Carr, second by Councillor Alsop. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Thompson, and we're not in committee of the whole, so we're now in open session, so please stand when you speak. Yeah.
Stand?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I meant to say that earlier.
No, that's okay. Pardon?
Yeah, no, it's my fault, so.
Okay, I'm going to support the motion. I think this group has a lot of potential. With any group, when they bring this idea, we've been looking for different ideas to help our homeless, whatever way it may be. This is the first group that's brought us the possibility of tiny homes. Is it going to work? I don't know. But at least somebody is going to do the initial investigation to say it's a possibility of working or no, it isn't. And when we get this opportunity for $25,000, which isn't a lot of money, it's $25,000, but these people have done so much work in our community that they've never asked a nickel from us. And they've provided food, shelter, clothing, tents. they've supplied everything in this city. So these people need, and I hope with the consultant being in the background, that they'll be able to do something, bring something forward to us that maybe we've talked about in other cities, that may be what we've been looking for a long time. So,
Thank you. Councillor McCaw and then Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. And just as I said before, in principle, I support the idea, but I'm not going to support the motion unless I have some further information from this consultant. I don't know who the consultant is. I could be writing a check to somebody's aunt, for all I know. I need, when I'm talking about spending taxpayer dollars, I need some assurances. I just can't have people stand at the podium and just assure me that this person that they want to use as a consultant is who they say they are. I need some background before I can actually approve $25,000 of taxpayers' dollars. The rest of it I'm fine with. That part, not so much.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mayor, I have some thoughts too. Our guests from Not Alone team did mention that I believe the guy's name is Tony, and Tony's worked in Kitchener and Kingston, and I just wish there was some more information. As like Councillor McCaw said, it's the taxpayers' dollars that we're dealing with here, and it's $25,000. I think it's just transparent to have that information. But there's the other side of me that, as Councillor Thompson touched on, for 5 years I've had a relationship with Debbie and the Not Alone team. I know the work 24/7 really, and the work has just expanded. I think possibly Debbie, and I think it was Vino, was it V, that were speaking to us. They just need somebody to step up with some professional writing experience on a proposal or finding out who this consultant is. That's what they're missing, and maybe there's somebody around the table here or somebody at City Hall that we could support them with putting together their package to make it a strong package to go to Hastings County, and as Councillor Carr touched on, building relationships and partnerships in our community. It's not a lack of work on their part. They're just doing what their gut tells them to do, and this is how they've been doing it and been having success. But now they're taking their program to the next level. They're talking about a charity, nonprofit. They just need some guidance now, some TLC for them. That's what they're lacking. So I think we need that report. I'd like to see what Tony has to say and just the cost going forward. But I will support it, but I'm a little leery on not knowing much about this Tony chap.
Yeah. Councillor Feeney.
Thank you. Basically, all I was asking for was, is there a way to in our motion, put that we support this and we're prepared to provide the $25,000, but we would like to receive a proposal or a letter or something from Tony. That's all we need, is something to let us know this is what he's planning to do. We have something. It's not that I don't believe what we heard today. I support it 100%. I just think that, you know, we're paying $25,000. It's like, okay, fine. You get a quote from a contractor. I'm going to do this for you, and hopefully in this period of time. That's all. That the organization provides us with the one pager from Tony.
And I think that's what the motion is asking for. It's going to come through Not Alone Team Quinty as the partners that we have, but you know, again, they'll go through that process. Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, no, this isn't the first time that tiny homes has been discussed in this council. Councillor Williams brought it up, following either during our housing summit or following it. So it isn't a new idea. It's certainly a welcome idea that Not Alone team has brought forward. And as I said, I have the utmost respect for what they do. This particular project seems a little out of their grasp in terms of they don't have the expertise to be able to fully understand all the complexity that's involved in terms of establishing this. And as for spending $25,000 of taxpayers' money, to say it's not a lot of money You know, I don't know about your home, but my home, that's a lot of money. Tony, somebody, we don't even know if he's a consultant. It's just a name. So I can't support spending $25,000 worth of taxpayers' money without even knowing A, who this consultant is that we're going to use, or they're going to use, and B, what he's going to deliver. We need to know who he is and what he's going to deliver, determine what the appropriate cost might be, and then consider approving it if this council doesn't want to refer it to Hastings County. So, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kelly?
Is it possible to?
Sorry, you spoke already, right?
Yeah, I just want to make a friendly
see if
amendment.
it,
Can I do
well,
that?
can we just let everyone
Yeah,
have a
sure.
speak, and then I'll recognize you. Anyone else want to speak on this? Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you, and I'm pleased to move the motion. I guess the question becomes, are we going to do all we can to help, or are we going to find reasons not to? And it's easy to find reasons not to help. And the reality is, what I'm hearing here is, are we going to micromanage this project? I look at Grace Inn as a prime example. It was a grassroots organization that started out with volunteers, that worked itself into an operating facility, and yes, they have to go find funding, but find me a nonprofit organization that doesn't have to go and beg for money from governments of all levels, and they're no different. The reality is that we got a greater need, and we don't have the resources for it. Now, we can go to Hastings County, but Hastings County's got a wait list of 3,000 homes. So I would argue that they don't have the solution. They probably have the ability to leverage the request for senior levels of government, whether it's through the CHIPPY program, as it's been referred, the Homeless Initiative, or any other for that matter. The reality is we need all hands on deck. Now, the question becomes, do we trust the people that volunteer with Not Alone Quinte? And do we trust them with public funds? The motion talks about some accountability, so if they aren't delivering, we can certainly tap the brakes and say that, you haven't fulfilled your obligations. But if we're getting into starting to scrutinize every stroke of the pen that this organization is trying to do, a grassroots community group that basically driving around the city sees a homelessness problem, people that don't have the ability to even generate enough money for food, and they're going around trying to solve a problem. So I think what we really need to do is look at it as a $25,000 investment to put a little wind under their sails to perhaps fill yet another gap. And we have a lot of organizations that do a lot of great work, but we're still coming up short. And so we have to be creative. Now, they referred to, and everybody talks about this Tony guy, okay? BetterStreet.ca. Tony D'Amato Storts is the founder of Better Street, which offers strategies, problem solving, and training for groups helping with those who experience homelessness, drug addiction, and mental health problems. Better Street endorses and assists sanctioned tiny home communities for these vulnerable individuals. Tony worked for us for a year as a site superintendent for a Better Tent City in Kitchener, Ontario, one of the tiny home communities in Canada. In Kitchener, Tony used his construction experience, business training, and people skills to achieve many goals, including helping to build the heated cabin residents would live in, planning and executing 2 moves in the entire community, so we talk about the temporary zoning, managing 2 COVID outbreaks, and bridging gaps between the professional and street worlds, which is huge. He is currently advising the Hamilton Alliance for Tiny Shelters in Hamilton, Ontario, as it sets up 10 to 20 individual cabins where residents can live independently in a supportive community. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Commerce from the University of Guelph. He has extensive government experience at the provincial and municipal level and outreach work as outreach coordinator for St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church in Kitchener and in launching new programs. He helped launch and operate Tiny Home Takeout, which is a church-based initiative in Kitchener that gives away the same freshly cooked meals to everyone from elected officials to street people, and is supported by donations and volunteer work. So that's Tony. Tony sounds like he knows what he's doing. And the fact that Not Alone Quinte's found this guy and knows that there's a cost associated with getting the concept underway, By them suggesting that they require Mr. Storts tells me that they don't have the expertise, but they're willing to go find it. But they can't do it for free. They can't do it out of their own personal pocket. So $25,000 of taxpayers' money to investigate the possibility of taking folks off of the street, having them to have a warm place to stay, a place to cook meals, a place to shower, and hopefully, and this is very important, a place to get the resources they require. And that sounds like a great concept, and I think we've all talked about that initiative in wanting it. Now, we have a choice. We can kick it down the road to Hastings County and let them play around with it and figure out what they could possibly do. They'll probably apply for some funding, or we can at least start with giving the $25,000, hold them accountable for their deliverables, but at least try to make a dent in somebody's life for the better versus spinning our wheels here and trying to come up with solutions and wondering why we can't come up with solutions, but solutions are showing up at this podium. We just have to give them that activation, if you will, to make this a success. And so I think I'm excited about the possibilities here. There's a lot of hurdles, don't get me wrong, and they know that. That's why they need somebody here to help them through those hurdles. Sounds like this would be the type of guy that would help out with funding applications, lobby other government levels, and he has connections. And so let's see what happens. But otherwise, if we don't do it today, then we're passing up an opportunity and we're kicking it down the road. And we always talk about wanting to help the vulnerable. We have an opportunity here to do that very thing. And so I'm going to definitely vote in favor. I would ask for a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Before we go back around for someone the second time, again, I just want to stress, especially for those that I've heard have some concern about the consultant, the funding we're providing is not for a consultant. The funding is for a concept plan. What Not Alone Team Quinte chooses to do to get the expertise to help them with the report is up to them. They may utilize the consultant they spoke about. They may go to the City of Kingston. I don't know. But when I look at a report that will come for them, I will judge the credibility on who helped to prepare it. But I'm not going to tell them who they have to do it. I'm not going to demand that the consultant come before us to report. We'll work through that. So, in terms of that, what we're asking for is a concept plan. In other sectors, they call it a business model, a business plan. How would this happen? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? What are the legal changes that have to occur? Whatnot. The other thing I would say is, if you remember when I asked specifically if they've already received funding from Hastings County. And so let's not forget, the money that Hastings County distributes from the Community and Human Resource Services account is partly our money. So we've already funded this organization with our money for them to do activities. It's not, I think we've already covered off that risk. So, I can appreciate that people have some concerns, but the reality here is that we are making an investment to see about a concept. If it can be, we can get proof of concept, come back to us so we can make a decision. I don't know what your amendment was, Councillor Kelly, but I think maybe that covered it off. And I think, we've got to be careful not to get into the weeds on, this consultant or that person. We're going to give them until the end of the year to come back with a proof of concept proposal. And I'm comfortable with giving that. Does anybody else have anything they want to say on a second round that they feel is necessary, or can we call the vote? Councillor Feeney, yeah, go ahead.
I'm actually glad I made the comment because ourselves and the people at home just had all this wonderful information, and that was the piece that was missing from the presentation. So I'm quite happy to support.
And you, Councillor Feeney, sit on the grant committee, and you understand a lot of these proposals come forward from organizations that are volunteer-run and volunteer-based, and we ask the same questions, so that's all good. Councillor Sanderson?
Thank you, Your Worship, and certainly the name Tony and the 25,000 was what they said they were going to use the money for, so that's where the name came from.
No, fair enough.
And appreciate Councillor Carr researching it on the internet and being able to provide us a comfort level, so I'm certainly happy to support it.
Okay. Anyone else have something necessary to say? Councillor Kelly?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor, I want to thank Councillor Carr too. I just took it, there was a gentleman by the name of Tony doing some work, and In my address, I was suggesting that maybe there was somebody in City Hall or around this table could help this group. And after hearing Councillor Carr speak and do your research so quickly, you have a gift. Help them out. Thank you. Help them out. Thank you.
Good. Okay, so we have, do you want me to read the motion again? So we know the motion. All in favor? Councillor Carr asked for a recorded vote. Do you still want that recorded vote, Councillor Carr? Okay, Mr. McDonald.
Councillor McCaw,
Yes.
Councillor Sanderson,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Councillor Alsop,
Yes.
Councillor Carr,
Yes.
Councillor Feeney,
Yes.
Councillor Kelly,
Yes.
Councillor Millette,
Yes.
Mayor Panchak.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so thank you, colleagues. The second item, Councillor Thompson, I'll recognize you now. This is dealing with the Downtown Business Improvement Association presentation. You have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to present a motion, and then after I present the motion, I'd like to speak on it a bit. Motion that the request from the DBIA for the Welcoming Street funding be sent back to Hastings County for the discussion at the September meeting. And at the end of the September meeting, it be referred back to City Council.
So can I suggest, Councillor Thompson, just a little reword on that, that the request that Belleville City Council supports the Welcoming Street Initiative proposal from the BDIA and request that Hastings County support it. And then that will trigger the report coming back to us. Okay. Does that sound okay, Mr. McDonald? Now I understand Councillor McCaw is going to second that motion. Okay, you're on.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor McCaw second that, so now I can speak on it. And you know, the initiative, we don't want to lose sight of the initiative. And I must admit, I had a motion prepared ahead of time that Belleville would fund this tonight for $80,000. And after getting here, I have to commend Councillor McCaw for talking to people at Hastings County and the DBIA. And if you look at some of the dialogue of the one that's really changed my mind and to send it back to City Council or to Hastings County, I confirm that the present Welcoming Street, if Councillor Carr doesn't, or Councillor McCaw doesn't mind me reading this, it confirmed that the present Welcoming Street is only funded until the end of 2022. All agencies' allocations is under review for 2023 going forward through our community grant investment review, which is expected to be brought to committee in September. And that's really why I've changed my motion. And I think this council really is very much in favor of the funding. Whether we have to fund it, but Hastings County has said in this one, they're willing to look at it. They're the ones that are funding it now. We need to give them the opportunity to say, yes, we'll continue the funding. If not, I feel very good that it would come back to council and council would, look at it and have some discussion whether they'd support it or not. But it's with this dialogue that I'm saying, okay, send it back to Hastings County. And I must admit, I had this dialogue with Sue Horwood and Mr. Pines and Louisa from the DBIA had this all prepared, but this really put another light on it. So I think it's an opportunity. I don't want to make the Hastings County look bad by any stretch of the imagination, but with this dialogue from the director, Dino, that's really why it's going back there. So I'm prepared to send it to Hastings County, look for them. And as a matter of fact, Councillor Chris Millette is not attending the September meeting, and I'm going to be attending it, which makes me feel good that I can be there. No, you're in September, the August meeting, sorry. Sorry.
Well, we can arrange for him not to attend if
Maybe
you really want, Councillor Thompson.
Maybe we can arrange for him not to, but anyways,
We'll get
I know
Tony,
the committee
Tony to
members-
help out.
Yeah, maybe you have to be in Ottawa or something. Anyways, I know that the committee members that are on it will work towards getting a resolution from the Hastings County. I would have liked to be there. I may go and just sit in the audience and listen. So thank you very much. So that's my motion.
Thank
and
you.
that's why I went.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor McCaw.
Yes, thank you, and I might call Tony myself to that meeting, because we want the funding and we want it paid for through Hastings County. That is their mandate. That's why we pay them millions of dollars every year, is to fund programs that benefit initiatives like this. So I think between the four of us, and actually with Councillor Thompson being the alternate, the five of us, we should be able to build a pretty good case as to why this should be supported. I did recommend to Louisa Sorrentino that she take that presentation, and most notably, I'd like her to send Chief Callahan's portion of that to one of our committee meetings, and I hope they will accept that as a deputation, because they really need to see the impact it's had. Whether they know it or not, I don't know, but they need to see it, they need to hear it. So I do think that we should advocate for that, Councillor Thompson, at the August meeting, that presentation be brought as a deputation to that meeting in September. So that's something I'd like to bring forward to those that are on the committee with me. So wholeheartedly agree with it. As I said earlier, if Chief Callahan endorses it, you know, I know it's a good program and it's been very helpful. So I think we should really put that forward at Hastings County, and look forward to the meeting in August.
Okay, so if the resolution passes, Director McDonald will communicate this to Hastings County tomorrow morning, so they'll have it in time for their next committee meeting on Wednesday, and then whatever the committee will take action on. Does anyone else have anything they want to say on this? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, everybody. Anyone have any other new business? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. You referred earlier that a lot of the complaints we get is about speeding. The other one that I seem to get a lot of calls about is parking, and particularly after hours parking the wrong way, parking right at the corners, and in particular in our new subdivisions with very small driveways, parking in a way that blocks sidewalks. And so I've talked with the city clerk, and so I'm going to ask for a staff report on costs of expanding the level of service on parking enforcement, particularly after hours, and I'll look forward to that report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I too rise to request a staff report. In speaking with the CAO some weeks ago, just casually to see if it was at all possible, and further discussions with Mr. Ferguson and Treasury, we saw how successfully we purchased green space lands down at the Bay Shore at the Bakelite. So what I'm proposing is an establishment. What we used there was I believe we used the Capital Reserve Fund to fund that, which, let's face it, it's not exactly the fit for that kind of a purchase. That's not to say that this kind of a purchase going forward isn't very important and valid. So for that reason, I would ask for that staff prepare a report to council on, quote, the establishment of an Environmental Lands Protection Reserve Fund, investigating and reporting on the efficacy of such a fund for use in protecting environmentally sensitive and significant lands from development by means of the municipality purchasing such lands where viable, and means by which such a fund would receive its revenue. So I've given the wording on that to Mr. Ashton, Mr. Ferguson. I'll get a copy to the clerk, and there's no deadline. I'm not in any rush on that report, but I would like to start the ball rolling on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sanderson, new business?
Thank you, Your Worship, and boy, this one seems timely.
Okay.
So I want to talk a little bit about social housing, and so we heard some reference to subsidized housing from the Not Alone team, but Hastings County owns and operates 1,473 units, of which 875 are in Belleville, roughly 60%. So that's the landscape, 1,473 units. Over the past 4 years, about 150 units housing units have been added to that stock. The white list, as of December last year, was 2,614, and it's growing at about 20% per year. So if we were to freeze and Debbie talked about the white list being 5 years, If we were to freeze this list at 2614, it would take, based on how many we've built over the last 4 years, it would take 20 years just to address the list that we've got if we continue to do what we've continued to do forever. So it's just not good enough. We've got a housing crisis in our community. We need to do something different. Excuse me. So I have raised the issue on at least 2 occasions with Hastings County, and then again last week as a guest on Beyond the Politics, which was hosted by Paul Martin. I said that we needed a paradigm shift in our thinking about social housing, especially rent geared to income or subsidized. The current approach is a perpetual downward spiral, and with each year, we just fall further and further behind. So in April, again of this year, the federal government announced a $10 billion boost for housing starts. Now, there's not a whole lot of clarity to that at this point, but we need to develop a plan to address our social housing shortage and tap into whatever program comes our way. From the literature that the feds produced on that program, they have said that the spending includes $4 billion in broad accelerator fund for municipalities to help with the planning and delivery of housing, with a target of 100,000 units over the next 5 years. And there's also $1.5 billion over 2 years for upwards of 6,000 new affordable housing units through the Rapid Housing Initiative, $475 million for those facing affordability challenges, and the acceleration to $2.9 billion in already promised spending through a co-investment fund to provide housing for vulnerable Canadians. So we have an opportunity to make a difference in our community. And it starts with identifying suitable land for the construction of additional housing units, whether in partnership with Hastings County or as a municipality. So we need to exhaust all funding opportunities to make this a reality. And so, big challenge, right? And so, well, if we take a look around, what are we going to be able to do? But I just want to plant a couple seeds, right? So, one example would be the YMCA. So when the YMCA moves to their new location, out there in the East End, we've got a potential for social housing. So keep that in mind. Just to sort of piggyback a little bit on the tiny housing thought, this is something that former Fire Chief Mark McDonald mentioned to me. When the Fire Station 2 closes, and it's pushing 80 years old, it will close, that might be an excellent site for a tiny home concept. So whether it sort of builds on whatever comes out of the earlier discussion, but let's keep that in mind as well. And so we do have a community services meeting on Wednesday, and I plan on bringing this back up once again and just pushing a little bit harder. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Anyone else for new business? Okay, we'll move now to motions, and there is a motion, and prior to considering that motion, we'll have to have a motion for reconsideration by Councillor Carr. I'll recognize you, Councillor Carr, now under that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to rise on a point of order first. Can you point me to the substantive motion that was passed by council that would require reconsideration?
In 2019, for the first time, there was a motion brought before council revising the procedural bylaw, amending it, that passed. And then subsequent to that, we have had motions we dealt with during the pandemic emergency where a staff report came forward with a recommended amendment to the procedural bylaw. If you look on page 8 of the procedural bylaw under rules of procedure, it talks about a substantive motion has been decided. In both cases that occurred.
So if I could get clarification through you to the clerk then, I'm confused. We're gonna end up at the same result at the end of the day. It's just a matter of procedure here. The motions that that you just referred to in amending the procedural bylaw was related to the provincial emergency. And from my understanding is those amendments that council voted on ended when the provincial emergency ended. Is that correct?
No, what I had suggested was that in 2019, there was a motion brought forward to deal with the procedural bylaw, which was amended. So the procedural bylaw, if you look at it, it has 2019 on there because that was a substantive motion. We also amended the procedural bylaw based on a staff report in 2020 when the pandemic resulted to allow for virtual meetings, because at that time, council's procedural bylaw did not allow for that.
Okay, all right. So you're referring to pre-pandemic amendments that were made to the procedural bylaw. Therefore, if any other amendment is made to the procedural bylaw, it's
by a member of council, yes, if you bring it up through a motion. If it comes by virtue of a staff report, then we don't deal with them as a reconsideration.
Okay, all right. So obviously, I've got a motion for reconsideration, and what it pertains to essentially is the issue of the committee of the whole and who chairs it. And I want to say right off the bat, I have no objection to what we're currently doing. But the procedural bylaw under section 6.35, if members of council have their procedural bylaws handy, they can follow along. Okay. During regular meetings, the current acting mayor of the month shall preside over committee of the whole, and in the absence of the current acting mayor of the month, the presiding officer shall be the next available. Then on June 27th, I raised this previously, the minutes read on June 27th, His Worship Mayor Panchuk addressed the issue of the return to committee of the whole rules prior to the COVID-19 pandemic as requested by Councillor Carr at the last meeting. Mayor Panchuk noted the federal government has chosen to continue with hybrid meetings and reduce numbers for proximity until 2023. In consideration of the feedback of members as well as consultation with the CEO and the city clerk, Mayor Panchuk, in the interest of fairness to all involved, will continue to chair committee of the whole portion of the meetings. I guess what I'm saying is that at that point, had there been a motion to suspend that section, council vote on it. I know council, some members were consulted and some weren't. But the reason why I'm bringing this forward strikes at the core process in democracy. At the end of the day, we vote collectively on the rules. And if we're going to suspend the rules, we collectively need to vote on that. And in this instance, it wasn't. Any authority that we as a council, and that's where the authority comes from, not individuals, and when it comes to the procedural bylaw of meetings and agendas, any authority that the mayor has been delegated by council through votes. And so the intent of the motion here is simply procedural in nature, but strikes to democracy in that we were all duly elected and we collectively decide on the rules in this place. And if we're going to change, suspend, or whatever the rules, that we collectively, in a democratic process, vote on those. And like I have said from the very beginning, I don't object to the process as it certainly stands. And I've introduced the motion, and I intend to vote in favor of the motion. It's simply a procedural matter that we collectively, democratically vote on. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carr. And so under section 4.4 of the rules of procedure respecting reconsideration, there is no debate. The member bringing forth is able to have a discussion, which Councillor Carr has done. And I just want to double check, Mr. McDonald, Director McDonald, because the motion of reconsideration does not require a seconder in terms of the way the agenda sets. So we don't need a seconder. So Councillor Carr has made that motion. So I'll call the question. All in favor of reconsideration of the item? Opposed? Okay, it's defeated. So the next item on the agenda is notice of motions. Anyone have any notice of motions? Councillor McCaw.
Thank you. I rise with a notice of motion today to ask if council would consider giving direction to staff to investigate all legal options available relating to the out-of-control rooming boarding house situation in residential neighborhoods. These options shall include the following: Number 1, the requirement that anyone renting out more than 2 rooms to unrelated individuals in a residential home with R1 zoning be required to have a license. Number 2, anyone renting out more than 2 rooms to unrelated individuals in an R1 zoned residential house be mandated to have the home fire inspected to ensure adherence to applicable fire safety codes as spelled out in, I believe it's section 9.3 of the Ontario Fire Code. And lastly, number 3, a mandate that any property with R1 zoning being rented as a rooming or boarding house be owner occupied at all times.
Okay, thank you. You've got that in writing. Councillor McCaw, can I just make 2 suggestions between now and the next meeting? One is just consult with Director Ashton regarding the changes to the zoning bylaw, where we're now moving to a different zoning status. So just to make sure that your motion is consistent with both the current but also the soon-to-be implemented new zoning bylaw. And secondly, I wonder if you can just, when you work with Mr. McDonald, Director McDonald on that, there may be a couple of words that are inflammatory you may want to pull out just to make it so it's good. So I appreciate that. Okay, we've got it. Anyone else notice the motions? Seeing none, we'll now move to announcements. Anyone have any announcements they'd like to make today? I'll start with Councillor Kelly. Yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I'm a believer in keeping the city and those around the horseshoe here in the loop. And last week we had an Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee meeting. And one of our speakers was Kat Fishers-Andrews from Quinte Immigration. And just some knowledge for everyone, there are 50+ individuals, that's about 15 families now living in Belleville, that have come here from Ukraine. They need donations of transportation vouchers, taxis, Uber, and bus passes. I had a conversation this evening prior to the meeting with the Transportation Minister, Chair, Councillor Sanderson, and he's going to be tabling that on the 17th to help out our Ukrainian families with some bus passes. Loyalist College is offering residence spaces for Ukrainians until the end of November, and Volunteer and Information Quinte is helping with sourcing volunteers for various needs for Ukrainians and other newcomers in our community. And the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center just this past weekend had an open house for Ukrainian families. They had a great turnout. It's now going to be home for the meet and greet as they get a chance and climatize to their new home. So we welcome them, and thanks to Kat Fisher-Andrews for being so welcoming to Ukrainians, and we thank her for that. When you go to the Belleville YMCA, if you're new to the city, you get a 3-month membership. Councillor Millette and I met with Cindy Mytruck. She is the manager of partnerships and inclusion with the YMCA in Belleville, Trenton, and Peterborough. We had a good 1-hour session, and Councillor Millette and I pushed the 3-month deal to 6 months with no payments, no interest on their account. So that's for all newcomers to the city, and that was productive work. And I just want to get this in. This past Saturday, again, I was celebrating with our Jamaican community. August the 6th is Independence Day. It was their 60th anniversary that Jamaica is an independent country, and close to 200 from our Jamaican community were celebrating in Ward 2 at Thurlow Park. Jerk chicken, jerk pork. Councillor Sanderson, you would have loved it. I mean, Councillor Thompson. And it was just a beautiful day. So happy 60th anniversary to our Jamaican friends, and I was so blessed to be invited. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Just a couple of announcements. First of all, I attended the Quinte Gardens Farmers Market on Saturday, as I know the mayor has and other councillors have attended it. And I want to give a special thank you to the organizers for the food expo down at Swicks Park on Saturday, and I know the mayor's going to speak about it. You know, the work that group went to provide that for our city was absolutely incredible. They had 30 or 40 vendors there, and the demonstrations by the chefs was phenomenal. I got to take part in the the tasting of one of the chefs. Alls I can say, thank goodness there was cold water after we did the tasting, but the food was great, but the water was even just as good at the end. But compliments to the group that organized it. I know the mayor's going to speak more about it, but I think that was, for the first time that they've had it in Belleville, was the wonderful success. Thank you.
Good. Anyone else for announcements? All right. I will start off. I want to start off just by saying it's good to be back meeting council. It's been since July the 11th that we've gone, and while it doesn't seem like it's been all that long, it has been quite some time, and we've been to a lot of things together. There will not be a meeting on August the 22nd. Our next council meeting will be on September the 12th. There is no urgent business that has to be dealt with, and we made that decision earlier this morning. I would like to proclaim August the 15th as India's Independence Day. India received independence on August the 15th, 1947 from British rule. As India completed 75 years of independence, we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, India's first, they're celebrating that event. India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru, hoisted the Indian national flag above the Lahori Gate of Red Fort in Delhi on August the 15th, 1947. So congratulations to all of our residents of Indian descent. I'd also like to proclaim August the 18th as Never Give Up Day. This is a day of global awareness to express appreciation towards those who never give up. It recognizes those who have gone the extra mile through their sustained endeavors, determination, and dedication. I would also like to proclaim August 31st as International Overdose Awareness Day. This is the world's largest annual campaign to end overdose, reduce stigma, provide resources, and support information to individuals. We recognize International Overdose Awareness Day as an opportunity for members of our community to remember and publicly mourn loved ones lost to overdose in a safe environment, many who will be coming to publicly mourn for the first time without feeling guilt or shame. We resolve to play our part in reducing the stigma of drug-related deaths and the toll of overdose in our community, which has claimed the lives of many, with countless more affected forever. I would like to proclaim the month of September as Arthritis Awareness Month. 6 million Canadians have arthritis, and 1 in 5 Canadians live with pain of arthritis. More than half of people with arthritis are under 65. Arthritis is definitely not just an older person's disease. Children can get arthritis as well, and as many as 25,000 Canadian children seek health care for arthritis. There are more than 100 types of arthritis, and it is the leading cause of disability in Canada. I would like to proclaim the month of September also as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Prostate cancer is the most common cancer among Canadian men, and 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with this disease. Awareness and conversations about prostate cancer can lead to screening and early detection. The City of Belleville supports Prostate Cancer Support Canada, and everyone committed to raising awareness about prostate cancer. I want to take a moment to express my deep sympathies to the family and friends of former Mayor Robin Jeffrey on her recent passing. We did acknowledge this with a moment of silence at our July 25th meeting, but just to remind everybody that Robin Jeffrey served the City of Belleville first as a city alderman, as was known back then, from 1968 to 1972, and then as mayor of our city from 1973 to 1975. Robin Jeffrey is someone I looked up to, and I have much respect for her when it comes to her dedication, her commitment, and her love for our great city, both before she was elected and subsequently after she left office. In 2019, we planted a white flowering crab apple tree, the same that had graced the front lawn of her Dufferin Avenue home for many, many years. And that new white flowering crab apple tree was planted in the Robin Jeffrey Park at the corner of Bridge Street East and Bleecker Avenue. May this park be a place to go to remember the impact Robin Jeffrey had on the city and her dedication to our community. She passed away in her mid-90s at the age of 90 on July 25th. And there will be a celebration of life for former Mayor Robin Jeffrey on Wednesday, September the 7th at Trillium Wood Golf Club at 2 p.m. I'd also like to express my deepest sympathies to the friends and family of Brian Scott on his recent passing. Brian Scott was the founder and the first artistic director of the Quinte Ballet School of Canada. After an accomplished dance career that included time with the National Ballet of Canada, Brian Scott came to Canada in 1972 and helped to establish the Quinte Ballet Guild, which eventually became the Quinte Ballet School of Canada. Students from around the world came to study under Brian until his retirement in 2000. Brian Scott passed away in his 93rd year on July the 12th. On Tuesday, July the 12th, I was pleased to meet with outgoing Loyalist College President Anne-Marie Vaughan to discuss the significant impact she's had on our community and how we can further our relationship with the college, even post Anne-Marie Vaughan leadership there. And on Wednesday, July the 13th, I was honored to help out at the Dundas Street West Tim Hortons location for Camp Day. Councillor Kelly came in to clean up after me, the mess I made, but the proceeds for that day were to help youth aged 12 to 16 taking part in camps in Canada. On Thursday, July the 14th, as the Mayor of Belleville, I attended an appreciation barbecue at Lexicon's Ajax location with fellow Lexicon Corporation board members as well as regional mayors to thank staff for their efforts during the extreme weather events of May the 21st and June the 16th, as well as their tremendous efforts put forward every day. On Friday, July the 15th, CEO Rod Bove and myself met with Hastings, Lennox and Addington MPP Rick Brzee to discuss the upcoming Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference in August and potential submissions regarding the city's priorities. We also met with Bay of Quinte MPP Todd Smith to discuss the conference and our city's priorities. What an exciting weekend it was here in Belleville from Thursday, July the 14th to Sunday, July the 17th. Our inaugural Camp Molly Quinte took place over this weekend with 35 female graduates who attended that are interested in potentially pursuing a career in firefighting. I want to say a big thank you to Fire Chief Monique Belair, all of her staff, volunteers from all over Ontario that came to help make this event possible, Councillor Sean Kelly for emceeing the graduation ceremony, and just everybody who came together to bring this forward, including many of our city staff. Also on that same weekend, the city was rocking thanks to the Empire Rock Fest returning to Empire Square in downtown Belleville. It is so re-energizing to have live music back in our city and to be able to gather and appreciate music again together. With record attendance numbers on the Saturday evening, we can safely say that you are all missing the live music as well. So a big thank you to Mark Rashad, Andy Forgey, and all the Empire Theatre staff and volunteers who made such an eventful weekend possible. On Monday, July the 18th, I was honored to meet with Chief Warrant Officer Bone and Colonel Deming of 8 Wing Trenton at City Hall here to be presented with a special recognition for our ongoing support as one of their last acts before a change of command ceremony occurred at 8 Wing CFB Trenton. 2 days later, I was very glad to be at the Sparky Splash Days of Summer United Way fundraiser at the Selma Botnick Splash Pad at 119 Birch Street, and I was also very pleased to be joined by Councillor Sanderson and MPP Todd Smith for the grand, and Councillor Alsop for the grand opening of the Jackson Woods Playground at 110 Finch Avenue. On July the 20th, also that same day, Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Thompson met with me that morning at Fire Station number 2 on Moyer Street West to unveil the new fire prevention mural. Over 25% of house fires in Ontario each year are caused by careless smoking. This mural at station number 2 is designed to raise awareness of the importance of disposing of cigarettes properly, not smoking where you sleep, and ensuring your smoke alarms are working correctly. On Thursday, July the 21st, Councillor Bill Sanderson, Councillor Thompson, and MP Jennifer O'Connell, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, Infrastructure and Communities, and the MP for Pickering-Uxbridge, joined us along with contractor Cooney Excavating as we celebrated the beginning of the reconstruction of Albion Way just off of Sydney Street. And this project includes reconstruction of the roadway, replacing the existing sanitary sewer, adding a new storm sewer system, and replacing the 112-year-old water main. On Friday, July the 22nd, I was joined by Councillor Bill Sanderson and Councillor Thompson at F45 Training to congratulate owners Clark Thomas and Mark Sutton for the official grand opening of their new facility at 199 Bell Boulevard. F45 Training is a global fitness community specializing in innovative, high-intensity group workouts that are fast, fun, and results-driven, specifically designed to provide a functional full-body workout within 45 minutes while improving energy levels, metabolic rate, strength, and endurance. And on Tuesday, July the 26th, I was pleased to meet with the Honorable David Piccini, Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks at his Port Hope constituency office. We have an excellent working relationship with Minister Piccini, and a number of items the city is working with his department on, and including discussing the item that Councillor Millette has asked for the staff report on, in terms of purchasing environmentally sensitive or provincially significant wetlands for purchase. And we had a very good meeting discussing all those items. On Thursday, July the 28th, I was happy to join managing partner Peter Goyer for the Ontario East region for MyCore Insurance Solutions and their opening of their new Belleville office here at the Belleville Mall. MyCore is an insurance brokerage and risk management consultancy specializing in a wide array of business and personal insurance products. On July the 28th, I was pleased to present a check for $5,000 to the Hastings County Historical Society on behalf of the city. The not-for-profit organization was established in 1957 to promote interest in the history of Hastings County. And on Friday, July the 29th, I was very, very pleased to join regional mayors and other dignitaries for the official change of command for the Wing Commander and Master Warrant Officer at 8 Wing CFB Trenton. Congratulations to Colonel Deming and Major Bone, newly promoted Major Bone, for their service and leadership over the past 3 years. Extraordinary times require extraordinary leadership, and these past 3 years clearly demonstrated this. We're grateful for their service and wish them all well, both well in their new roles. We also congratulate Colonel Lef Dahl and Chief Warrant Officer Renee Hansen on their appointments and look forward to working with them in the future. Last week on Thursday, I was pleased to meet with representatives from Walmart Canada to discuss their operation here in Belleville and some of their challenges and opportunities. It would be no surprise to any of us who have been to the Belleville location to learn that it is one of the busier stores in their system, and they are very pleased with their performance here in our city. As Councillor Thompson mentioned, on Saturday, the International Food Expo and Saffron Hub food event in support of female entrepreneurs at Westwick's Park was held. I was joined there by Councillors Carol Feeney, Bill Sanderson, and Garnet Thompson, and MPP Todd Smith, along with Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte Chief Donald R. Miracle. An exchange for welcoming everyone and introducing celebrity chef Massimo Capra. MPP Todd Smith and Councillors Thompson and Sanderson were able to join me in sampling a delicious pasta salad that had been prepared. I knew as soon as I took a taste that Councillor Thompson was going to have some issues with the heat. He took the first bite and he said, "Oh, this is pretty good, no problem." After about 3 or 4, a little bit of time, he was looking for some water. So that was very funny. Councillor Feeney was there as well, but unfortunately she has a pasta allergy, and so she couldn't take advantage of it. But congratulations to the organizers of this excellent event, and we look forward to next year being even bigger and better. And then lastly, I was so pleased to attend the Quinte Gardens for their reinstituted annual farmers market. Councillor Sanderson was there when I arrived, and Councillor Kelly and Councillor Thompson were there earlier. It was great to see so many residents and merchants out on a very hot day, and it is so wonderful to be out and about and taking part in activities and hearing so much excitement from residents about the future of their city. It really is terrific. Again, a reminder that our next meeting will be on September the 12th, as we won't be having a meeting on August the 22nd. With that, we'll move to item number 14. Confirmatory bylaw. I'm looking for a resolution that bylaw number 2022-116, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on August 8th, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 8th day of August 2022. Councillor Alsap moves it. Councillor Feeney is seconding it. All in favor? It's carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor McCaw and Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, everybody.